Should I mute my mic real quick?
Yeah, you could take a bong rip.
All right.
Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Political Pigpen. We've finally decided to give it a name. I think that's probably the most appropriate thing. But today,
I like the alliteration.
Yeah, Political Pigpen. It was either going to be Political Pigpen or Political Pigsty or whatever.
It's an appropriate name for this topic.
It really is, especially because today we're going to be discussing liberalism. Guys, you guys know what liberalism is, right? All those.
Yeah, it's when you dye your hair blue and advocate for I don't know, civil rights and stuff. That's what liberalism is.
Yeah.
How does okay, let's start. How does everybody define liberalism? Whether joking or serious, I really don't give a shit at this point.
Okay.
How
we define neoliberalism? You said
just liberalism in general.
Okay,
that's the entire topic. It's just liberal. It's like liberalism palooza tonight.
I can start if you want, I guess.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, yeah. I just see liberalism, honestly, as at least right now the political center. Basically, I kind of feel like it's essentially just people who at the moment are more economically conservative but are more socially liberal. And so they're kind of just stuck between the two because they don't want to admit the economically conservative policies they believe in hurt their socially liberal policies, and the same vice versa. And they seem to be constantly confused about why they can't have things both ways.
That's what you see it as? You just see it as just democratic centrism, essentially. So
at least at this
somebody
point,
somebody like Joe Biden or somebody
I'd say that's what a modern day liberals I would see like that. Yeah.
Well, at least in the United States, 100%. Yeah. All right. What about Voltaire? How would you define liberalism? What does liberalism mean to you?
I would describe it as a political program of building governmental, economic, and cultural institutions conducive towards prosperity for all humankind and freedom. Basically, it's a program for enfranchisement, freedom, and mobility for
there's
everybody.
I'm gonna mute myself.
So that's how I describe it.
Okay. So let's move on to Alcazar. How would you define liberalism?
Can you guys hear the train?
Yep.
I do hear the train.
Beautiful.
One time I was
come back to me.
Back in 2008, after my grandfather passed away, we had to stay in this hotel. This was like in bumfuck nowhere, California, and it was a Comfort Inn. And right behind the Comfort Inn, literally, maybe 50 yards away from it, was the train tracks. And every 30 minutes, these loud-ass trains would just go through. So we called it the Discomfort Inn. Anyway.
Would the whole hotel just shake by the trains?
Yep.
Love that.
Okay, so I would define liberalism broadly as economically, you believe in some form of a market capitalist economy. Now, how far you go with that, it could be regulated heavily. It could be very loosely regulated in a libertarian sense, or I'd even be willing to stretch it to allow market socialism to a certain extent.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mainly because I'll get into that later. But in a social sense, you advocate for civil liberties. Basically, the government, in most circumstances, cannot touch your civil liberties. So, and this can manifest in some ways. So broadly in favor of civil rights, LGBTQ equality, racial equality, stuff like that. But you can still hold some socially conservative views. I think. I don't think they're incompatible with each other.
What liberal, at least well-known liberal, would you say would be an example of someone who holds those socially conservative views? Who can you think of? I'm not challenging you on this by any means. I agree.
This is gonna be weird, but George H.W. Bush.
Interesting.
Because he was very economically obviously, a classical liberal in many
Not
respects.
H.W. Bush. You really think he was classically
You're
liberal? I mean, he was
confusing him
pretty.
with someone else.
Why not?
From your local leftist, I'd actually agree with that, honestly.
Well, the thing is, because for one, he was very like pro, because since he was like a moderate Republican, he was very like pro markets and stuff.
Oh
And,
yeah.
obviously he did increase taxes that one time, but that was.
I mean, Reagan, but then again, Reagan increased taxes 11 times.
Yeah.
And what's funny because they didn't taxes under the tax hikes that were put under Reagan or that Reagan implemented in the second term didn't get to a point didn't get back to a point like a low point that they were at before Reagan until Barack Obama did.
Yeah.
So why not William F. Buckley from
William F. Buckley? Yeah, I probably should have gone with that. Well, because the thing is, George H.W. Bush was pretty progressive for his time, in many respects.
You still would be.
Well, yeah, because he voted for like the Civil Rights Act and he passed the Americans with Disabilities Act.
I mean, that's not even really all that progressive. Like Americans with Disabilities Act isn't particularly progressive.
Historically, it definitely is.
What I would say is liberals. I would say liberals believe in universal tolerance, which essentially means which includes tolerance of intolerance. What that means is they're tolerant to the extreme in a way. They're like, oh well, I don't believe people should think people who are LGBT are bad, but also we can't fault people who don't think that, because they're just not educated enough yet, blah 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 blah. Essentially, it's literally just, I don't want to start a conflict, so I'm just going to remain in the center of every argument.
Okay, that is an interesting take off of it. But then we also have to realize that and remember that in every country the center is completely different. Like the United States, the center in the US is not the center in Denmark, which is not the center in China, which is not the center in Zimbabwe.
The center is pretty similar to that of Australia, though, you have to admit.
Or Canada, maybe. I think Canada.
I wouldn't even say. I'd say Australia is a lot closer to us than Canada is.
I actually don't really follow Australian politics.
I would agree with Australia. I loosely follow Australian politics, mainly because it's almost as entertaining as U.S. politics.
Oh no! Have you seen the British Parliament? Oh God, it's so much fun watching those.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Wait, would you describe the British center as roughly equal to like the American Australian center?
No.
The British center is further to the left.
Yeah, like Theresa May is basically Theresa May was to the left of Hillary Clinton.
Because even their social conservatives are like, get rid of Medicare for all. What the fuck are you thinking, Jesus?
No. Even their economic conservatives don't want to get rid of Medicare for all.
Privatize the NHS right now.
Like, nobody wants to do that. Like, not even.
Can we just turn this into a stream where we shit on the NHS, please?
I just want to shit on the UK in general. Dumpster fire.
Well,
look, as someone who does like socialized medicine, there are countries that do it far, 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 far fucking better than the UK.
Yeah, and they're never talked about ever.
The UK is the home of liberalism, so why not crap on it?
Okay, guys,
Japan is about far from liberalism as you can get.
Ironically does it better than the UK? Scotland. And you want to know the reason why they do it? And this is the reason, this is how I think we personally should do Medicare, a form of Medicare for all if we do it, is in Scotland, they do it by region. Like in the US, we could do it by state, aka you would have your state's health insurance. Reason that works a lot better is because the needs for each of those regions are different, and they know that, so they can adapt each region's healthcare more closely to the needs of those regions. So, unlike the NHS, it kind of just puts everybody into the same pile and is like, all right, we got to try and figure out all this.
Okay, well, for one, there's a difference between Medicare. Medicare for all is not what the NHS is.
No.
Yeah, that's not an accurate description.
When I mean that, I mean a nationalized health service in a way.
But NHS isn't even really. You see, NHS, it doesn't provide the healthcare though. They're just more like they just manage it.
No, they provide healthcare. Vast majority. So if like you go to an NHS hospital, that's run by the UK government. Now, general practitioners, they tend to be contractors, or sometimes.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but even with general practitioners, it varies. Sometimes they're employees of the NHS. Sometimes they're contractors who rent out doctors' offices. It's weird.
What were you saying about Scotland?
It's gay.
Scotland is gay?
Yes.
Japan has one of the most advanced, you could almost call it Medicare for all healthcare systems in the world, and they're as far from liberal as you can get in a modern country.
So, guys, North Korea actually has a very efficient healthcare system.
Yeah, it's just
they have 0 COVID cases.
Yeah,
you know how they deal with COVID cases, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
you just shoot them, and then
shoot them on site. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
In Japan, the government pays about 70% of all healthcare costs.
Really?
They're in the top. Let's see. They're in the top 10 highest health expenditure per capita adjusted for purchase power, based on the dollar.
Personally, I want to. If I were going to design a healthcare system, I want the U.S. to adopt the Dutch system.
You got to have a healthcare system like that when most of your population is making their way up into the 70s and 80s.
What about Singapore?
Chris in the comments talks about South Korea. That actually is a very good healthcare system, honestly.
What about Singapore?
Wait, guys.
Same reason for Japan. It's the same thing.
It's basically the same as Japan's. Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're gonna take our turns talking right now because I feel like everybody's just talking over each other, and So let's go one by one, and let's try to get back to topic 2 because I know that we can weave this in with the general topic itself. Like, do you think that liberalism and some social democratic aspects, like for instance, welfare, like a large welfare system, something that Bernie Sanders wants or whatever, do you think that they are fundamentally compatible from an ideological perspective?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In a good way or a bad way?
Yeah.
It depends on how far you go with the welfare system, because to a certain extent, social democracy becomes illiberal, especially in the 1960s, when many European social democratic parties were pretty protectionist.
Yeah. No, completely agree. And then what a lot of people don't realize is that, so they talk about Denmark, and they're like, oh yeah, we need to be more like Denmark. And Bernie Sanders is like, here are all my ideas. We're going to be like Denmark. And it's like, Bernie, that was Denmark 30 years ago.
Yeah, Denmark and Scandinavia is a lot less social democratic than it was 40, 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the prime minister called out Bernie Sanders for repeatedly quoting them as having a wonderful socialist model.
No, he was like, no, we are a free market country.
Yeah, he said, I would like to make one thing clear. Denmark is far from a socialist planned economy. Denmark is a market economy.
No, I can do it in his ass. Denmark is far from a socialist economy. Denmark is a market economy.
I think one of the underlying principles of liberalism in the West is the idea that the individual is the prime factor. So a big welfare state is entirely compatible with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all about the
individual.
And then what we also need to do is then we can remember. So has anyone ever read The Road to Serfdom? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I don't read. I don't know how to read.
So yeah, I have my copy right here. I'm trying to find the right here. So what's interesting is that in The Road to Serfdom, well, okay, so you have a lot of people on the right and on the left who completely miscite this book. Like, they have no idea. Like, you have people on the right and like libertarians too, just like free market people in general, who are like, okay, Hayek is like completely like pro privatization, everything, anti-social or anti-what, like basically they describe him as if he was some kind of ANCAP, which he was not.
Hayek,
Both the right and the left do that, and only the left do it because they want to vilify him, and the right do it because they want to claim him. But the thing is, the road to serfdom wasn't even about like regulation or welfare or anything like that. It was against central planning. The entire book was against central planning because he realized that you can have a strong welfare state and still have a completely free market. Like,
Yeah.
Like for instance, Denmark's market is like their economy is far more open than ours is.
Oh yeah,
they have fewer regulations. They and then it's sort of like a natural. There's sort of like a natural interplay between the companies and the unions, and there's not even really any tension or hostility. It's just cooperative. But I feel like maybe a lot of that might be because it's a much smaller country, easier to manage. They don't have a giant fucking empire to keep an eye over.
They also don't have a global hegemony to look over.
We're also way more homogenous too of a population.
You could probably say a lot of the lack of chaos from that is due to their enormous infrastructure budget.
Yes.
Everything is well upkept. No one really has to worry about their inability to get a job because there's all these job programs. You don't have to worry about being able to make rent on time because there's all these welfare programs. It's a very calm thing, and even the homeless are taken care of to a point where pretty much every other country would just give up.
See, honestly, if we had a system like that, I would like that, because honestly, I think the free market is fine. Honestly, I think there are parts of it that can lead to unintended consequences to things like the environment. But to be honest, I'm kind of becoming an environmental nihilist at this point, where I kind of just think we're fucked anyway. But essentially, one thing is, though, I honestly believe if we just give everyone a base level of living that is habitable, I'm not saying even comfortable. Let's not give them lazy boys and shit like that. But a roof over your head,
lazy boys
a roof over your head, 3 meals a day, and like a bed, I'd say. Basically let them have that. And you know what? If they want to lie down in bed all day and just live like that, fine. So be it. But most people won't. Most people are going to at least try and get out and contribute to society in some way. And most people, because we're naturally ambitious, are going to want to say, I don't like this studio apartment with like a bed. I want to live in a house. I want more things. I want to be comfortable. And they'll go out, work more so they can afford that.
Well, that's nice in a vacuum, but American society has so many ingrained problems that you cannot introduce a system like that without drastic consequences. You have a huge percentage of the population heavily addicted to opioids. You don't have that in the Western world outside of the US, Mexico, if you can call them part of the Western world, and Canada. You don't see that in the UK nearly as much as you do in the US. And in the UK, from the European perspective, they're already hopelessly addicted to this kind of stuff.
So someone mentioned Hayek earlier. But
yeah, that was me.
Yeah. So what makes Hayek interesting is he's a very subtle and nuanced thinker. And you're right that many people try to.
He was actually for welfare. Like, he wasn't a libertarian. Like,
yeah.
He was what you would refer to as an old, like an old school liberal, not like a modern liberal, but somebody who was for free markets but still believed that the government had a bit of utility.
Yeah, he called himself
liberal. Is what you're saying?
He called himself an old Whig in this.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So, but basically, there's this article from the Claremont Institute called Hayek Tragic Capitalism, and it pretty much states that he didn't view capitalism as a necessarily good or a moral force for good, but more so of a necessary
means to an
end. He was a utilitarian, pretty much, or some kind of consequentialist.
Yeah, he was. Consequentialist is a better description to describe Hayek's more ethical and political views. I will not describe him as a utilitarian, as JS Mill. But he also understood that there was an appeal to socialism. He was a socialist in his youth. He was a Fabian socialist.
I mean, isn't everybody at some point a socialist in their youth?
I was never a socialist.
Well, neither was I, but I was like on the default left. That was like
I was a fan of Rush Limbaugh when I was a kid.
that is cringe
Dude,
and
I've
blue
always
pill.
been
Right
center right. I've always been
Maximum
center
cringe.
right in some form.
To be fair, I've just drifted further left the older I've gotten. So
Really?
But
yeah,
I thought you used to be like a communist though, didn't you?
that was for a very brief period of time 2 months ago.
Well, you were a communist 2 months ago?
What? How do you change ideologies that drastically in 2 months?
It doesn't make any sense. I don't believe you.
It probably has something to do with mental illness.
Yeah, that's fair.
About communism, very always right on the heels of mental illness.
It's essential.
So can I read
To be fair,
Speaking of
because my utopian society is a form of techno-communism, but that literally requires more automation on a scale we don't have and probably won't have for a goddamn long ass time.
Hey, can I read something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hayek
Clifford, the good rag dog.
Hayek did not deny that all this entailed a alienating individualism. On the contrary, he emphasized it and warned that it was the deepest challenge to the stability of capitalism, against which defenders of the markets must always be on the guard. This brings to us his account of the moral defects of inherent in human nature. To take seriously this thesis that human beings are the product of biological evolution is, for Hayek, to recognize that our natural state is to live in small child bands of sorts, in which our ancestors were shared by natural selection. Human psychology still reflects this primitive environment. We long for solidarity with a group that shares a common purpose and provides for its members based on their personal needs and merits. The impersonal and moral self-interest nature of capitalist society repels us. We are, according to Hayek, naturally socialists.
Nerd.
Well, no, I mean, Ludwig von Mises did storm out of the Mount Pelerin meeting that one time, or Pelerin, I forget, and he said, "You guys are all a bunch of socialists." And it was Hayek, Friedman, Buchanan, all those guys.
Well,
Was that when the term neoliberalism was coined? It was that meeting.
No,
right?
yeah, okay, so we can move. Let's start talking about.
If you're looking for the founders, the Mont Pelerin Institute is where you'd look.
But that's but that was completely different than what we call neoliberalism now. Basically, it became corrupted and hijacked by corporatists.
Well, if you look at who laid all of the groundwork, it was at Mont Pelerin.
that's true.
But no, but they were. I don't think they intended it to become what it is now because they weren't authoritarians.
So how shall we define neoliberalism?
It's like,
Well, the thing is, neoliberalism. Hold on, I'm actually going to pull up another.
As a neoliberal, I'd like to speak on this topic. So there's a mutual of mine on Twitter whose name is Joshua Z. Miller. Can't be bothered to look at his ad. Just hope you find him. His name has a shit ton of emojis in it. But he jokingly said a neoliberal is a libertarian mugged by reality.
That sounds like a J-Reg quote or something. If you guys watch.
Well, yeah. So it's a if you guys are retarded.
I fucking love J-Reg.
Let him
Oh
talk.
god, dude, he's not funny. But
Don't let him talk. He doesn't deserve it anymore.
We're not talking about J-Reg, guys.
we're not talking about Jerry. Shut up. So it's obviously a joke on that. Was it Irving Kristol or William F. Buckley quote? I can't remember who said it. A neocon, somebody who was as a liberal who was mugged by reality.
Yeah, that's Irving Kristol.
Irving Kristol. That's what I thought. But I think that's a fairly accurate descriptor. Because neoliberals and at least the center right ones, the ones I hang out with, tend to be people who are very skeptical of government intervention, but are not inherently against it if it's proven to be worthwhile. But generally, no. So basically, most center right parties in Europe and stuff
So,
No.
oh yeah, continue.
No, that's it.
Oh yeah, so, but yeah, with hold on, but yeah, so neoliberalism, that term is without a doubt one of the single most overused and abused terms out there. Like, for instance, you have, you have like unironic people like who refer to themselves as neoliberals, and it's like, okay, that's fine. I mean, they're using that to describe themselves. But then I've also heard people, and this is what I find really cringe. You have people like you guys all know Shoe on Head, right?
Oh my god, dude.
Never heard of him.
What's up? It's a she.
Never heard of the guy.
She, but,
Oh,
no, but
Everyone's
no, but she's like, but she always says, "Oh, we need to like fight back against the neocons and the neolibs." It's like, what are you talking about? Like she's just and say Tim Pool actually does pretty much the same thing as well, and they talk about it as if neoliberal and neoconservative, like neoliberal is the left-wing version of a neoconservative, and neoconservative
Not at all.
is the right-wing version of neoliberal. That's not what it is at all. They're
A
two.
neoconservative and neoliberalism are not incompatible ideologies.
No, they're not incompatible. But the thing is, they're completely separate things.
Their fundamental axes are completely different.
Yeah, like for instance, most neoconservatives are also neoliberals.
Yeah.
And I'd also say that, well, while most neoliberals aren't neoconservative, almost all of them, at least today, are internationalist hawks of some sort.
Yeah.
Neoconservatism, neocon, that term is just it's used almost exclusively when talking about foreign policy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it was originally meant to designate a school of thought within American foreign policy.
Yeah, most of them were former Trotskyists, or they were either former Trotskyists or some of them were like former New Deal liberals.
So, like your guy James Burnham was a former Trotskyite, and
exactly
considered to be the father of neoconservatism. Although it's interesting how he was.
No, that was Bill Kristol. Bill Kristol was father of neoconservatism.
No, Bill Kristol.
I mean, that's what I meant. Yeah, Irving Kristol.
Well, like, isn't James Burnham was one of the founders of the National Review and was?
Yeah, but he wasn't really. He was sort of like a bridge point. He wasn't like full neocon, but he definitely believed in like a world Western empire, essentially led by America.
Monsieur Politicrat, you have some spurgs in the chat trying to get.
I see them. I'm ignoring them.
Jesus.
I know exactly who they are.
Big.
Hello, Doswood.
Big Chungus.
So,
okay. So anyway, so neoliberalism, that is without a doubt one of the single most overused, abused, and misunderstood terms out there. Like, I just feel like people say it, but they don't know what they are actually saying.
Hold on, let me pull up the definition by the Adam Smith Institute because they have a pretty good rundown of it.
Okay, yeah, that's probably one of the best.
Yeah, because they used to call themselves libertarians, but now they're neoliberals. So I'm gonna quote.
No, like the Nixon Center or the Niskinson Center is some DC think tank that split off from Cato like 5 years ago.
So it starts out, you may have spotted that we've recently started to decide calling ourselves free market neoliberals instead of libertarians. Nothing's changed about what we believe about the world, the approach. Madsen's looking at the world through neoliberal eyes is an excellent primer on what it means by that. I've had a stab at something similar too. For us, the word neoliberal means that we're pro-markets, pro-property rights, pro-growth, individualistic, empirical and open-minded, globalist in outlook, optimistic about the future, and focused on changing the world for the better. So I think that's generally a good rundown by the Adam Smith Institute on their blog when they decided to called coming out as neoliberals. Like, that's funny.
The Hartman Institute, I think.
Filthy centrist.
Yeah. So I think that's generally a good rundown of what neoliberalism is.
Yeah.
So,
But so now we will go on to. So I wanted to originally frame this stream in such a way where we try to get to the bottom of what liberalism actually is, because it's not just neoliberalism, but just liberalism in general that is thrown around to mean pretty much whatever the person wants it. Like it's an insult to some people, like by some people. It's a compliment by some people. To some people, it means something economic. To some people, it just means like this larger abstract tradition. And then other people use it interchangeably with socialists. Like I remember, I was in a class. There was this really nice girl. She was smart. She had, I think she was actually she was a high school student taking a college level class, and she and I were talking afterwards. And she was like, "Oh, I've just, you know what? Like politics just annoys me these days. I'm so sick of all these liberal leftists, or these like these liberal far leftists, or so, it was like something along those lines, trying to like put socialism on everything." And I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking, well, I mean that is a contradiction. Like liberalism and socialism are at odds with each other. Like you can sort of have like a little Hegelian dialectic thing going on, and you get social democracy. But like even I'd consider social democracy sort of on the edges of liberalism, because it's basically socialism within the larger context of liberalism itself.
Well, of course, that's the liberal terminology used in the United States means something entirely different from the political theory itself.
Yeah. And then, for instance, like that's where it gets lost in translation, because like if you go to France or if you go to Germany and you say like I am a liberal, it will mean something completely different than if you say you're a liberal like here. Basically, if you tell, like, let's say you identify as you're like a Warren supporter or something here in the U.S. and you call yourself a liberal, and then you go to Germany or France and you find like that person finds another fellow left of center person, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm a liberal." They're gonna probably look at them and cringe, because their liberal means that basically the same thing of like a moderate libertarian would be here.
Yes. That's why the Liberal Party in the UK is essentially defunct.
Yeah, well, but then it joined with the Social Democratic Party, and then became the Liberal Democrats, and then they became cringed.
Well, there's technically, I believe, there's also a Liberal Party, still the Liberal Party, entirely separate, but they are almost entirely inactive and they don't do anything.
Yeah, but anyway, like I was saying, I wanted to initially structure this stream in such a way where we have some questions set up, and we use those as the talking points to like move to each topic. So I know that sounds very vague how I just worded that, but we'll start with the first one right now. Can liberalism be defined as a single ideology with a tangible ethos and its own consistent meta-narrative? Or is it a bunch of different things that comprise just a larger, vague ideal?
Oh, that's a complicated question.
I mean, it definitely has a sort of consolidated meta-narrative, insofar as it was originally a reaction to something like absolutist monarchy.
Exactly.
That's also associated with the Enlightenment and general humanist thought, right? Mm-hmm. That's sort of the original trajectory, and then from there it kind of shotguns into a bunch of different things.
Well, because the way I see it is, initially it was a bunch of like different, completely unrelated fields, so to speak, that eventually converged in the 1700s and like became a coherent. Like for instance, John Locke and like Thomas Hobbes, for instance, they were they talked about, like, for instance, a liberal government, but they did not talk about economics. Like they didn't give two shits about economics. But then you have Adam Smith, who doesn't give a shit about how the state is necessarily structured, as long as it protects the people's right to, or as long as it enforces property rights.
I don't necessarily think that's true. He was also a moral philosopher.
Oh yeah, true. I mean, maybe he's a bad example, but what I mean is, like, he focused mostly on economics, whereas Locke, Hobbes, those guys, the guys in the 17th century, political theorists, they were just focusing on what the ideal way the state should be structured, and not so much about markets or anything like that. And then you also have more like philosophical individualism as well, which goes back, at least in the modern Western sense. You start seeing that really clearly with Thomas Aquinas, and even Saint Francis of Assisi, and then that moves, and then that gets really popular in the 1500s amidst the Reformation, and then it even gets popular in the Catholic Church, like among the ranks of the Counter-Reformation, which is kind of funny. But
Terminator, you might have been.
But then you just have like all of these different ideas, like all of these different vaguely similar, like philosophically similar movements or ideas that realize that they have things in common with each other. And then later on, towards the end of the Enlightenment, you have thinkers that start fusing them together into a coherent ideology. Like, I think like Mill is probably one of the best examples of that, because he combined like individualism with utilitarianism, with free markets, with like the limited constitutional government, and created sort of a coherent liberal, like meta narrative might even be a good way to say it. But then eventually it just all branched off again and became a bunch of different traditions. And now everybody wants to claim Mill
socialist later in his life.
No, you see, that's what socialists will have you believe. What he said is what he basically was is he supported worker co-ops, but he believed that worker co-ops should be voluntarily established and should compete with private corporations in a free market.
Oh, okay.
He wanted a natural balance between private and public
position
in all spheres of the economy.
Yeah, exactly. So like he had like some vague syndicalist elements, but he definitely was not a socialist. And then also he was for a flat tax. He was for he was against tariffs, I know. And then he was also the first person to propose school choice.
Really?
Yep.
That's
School
interesting.
choice. Yeah, school choice. That was John Stuart Mill.
When was this?
1850s, 1860s, somewhere around there. Hold on, let me pull it up.
Really funny.
Where was he when he was proposing that?
He was in the. I think he was either in the UK or France. No, he was in the UK. I think he proposed it before. Hold on.
I wasn't aware that. I mean, how prevalent was the public schooling system during that decade?
Well, America by the 1850s had a pretty robust public school system in like the Northeast.
I would imagine I think in the U.S. it was fairly small like that, but I don't know how it was in the U.K.
Well, Prussia had one since like the late 1700s. It basically had a decent public school system. I think Britain was starting to get around to it.
I would assume my limited history of the U.K. that they would have only just begun pushing for all citizens to be properly educated by that time.
So let's see. I got the Constitution of Liberty in my hand right now, which is Hayek's basic historic account of liberalism, and also a mix of public policy arguments. He basically distinguished the two defining traditions of liberalism: the Anglo-empiricist branch of liberalism versus the French rationalistic branch of liberalism. And he basically criticized the rationalist branch of liberalism for basically that their ideas required coercion and compulsory actions from a third party, i.e. the state and government. Yeah. That's why he was against the French Revolution. That's why he was viewed as a failure, and due to this fact that rationalistic liberalism requires some degree of state paternalism, while Anglo-empiricist liberalism is more or less based on experience and tradition as a guide to form law, governments, basically viewing and viewing that these institutions are our historic memory and safeguard for liberty and individual rights. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
hold on. I have the
something
thing
like
about. I have
arguing
the thing
for.
with, I have the thing with Mill right here. Hold on.
Oh,
What were you saying?
John Stuart Mill's commentary on the American Civil War. It's actually pretty interesting stuff.
Oh, that
Really?
is oh, it's great stuff. I love
Yeah,
that.
he was making fun of a bunch of people in the UK at the time who were like supporting the South because they were rused into thinking it was about tariffs and not slavery. He
Yeah.
basically called them retards.
It was the funniest thing.
But
Yeah.
there was the King Cotton sort of issue to do that they had to deal with and all
No,
that.
because there wasn't
nonsense.
King Cotton. That was basically like
I mean, it was
inspired by Marx. Wasn't it inspired? Wasn't that whole concept inspired by Marx? I know it was. I know it was
sure.
very like it
All I
had
know is it was an absolute failure in just about every respect.
King Cotton, huh?
Okay, so anyway, with
It's
Mill,
a bit unsurprising though. Just one more point on the Civil War bit that
Mill's comments on the public
Are-
education, and are you guys looking at the same thing? Mill on public educations and its alternatives.
No.
Hold on, I'll put it. I'll share it.
Oh, JS, you are a fan of JS Mill.
Yeah, I like him. Pretty good. I mean, I think I disagree with his materialism. Honestly, I've come to disagree. Like I've become a bit of an anti-materialist over the past year,
wonderful.
which is why I've moved more towards Austrian, like the Austrian school, in terms of economics, because I've become really like fascinated by metaphysics lately, which I never had any interest in before like a year and a half ago. I don't know what happened to me. Maybe it was after I was run over by a car, because that didn't happen.
Interesting.
Yes, but anyway, so hold on. I am going to hold on. How do I make moderators?
I don't know.
Hold on.
Can you even do that here?
I think that's in YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. I'm going to do that.
It's interesting to note that many of the plantation owners in the far east of the U.S. Before the Civil War were infatuated by English gentleman culture. A lot of that during the American Revolution, they would ally themselves a lot more closely with the Royalists, and that probably is what kind of dragged it on to.
Oh, guys, we're getting
favor of it.
we're getting ratioed. Everybody's coming and downvoting.
Oh no.
I don't care. Who are these people?
Oh no, it's somebody I know. Just being a shithead.
As soon as you said that, another downvote. It's all your
Really?
fault. Yep.
Oh, yep.
Keep going.
But yeah. Anyway, hold on.
There's another one.
Yeah. Anyway, so what were you saying again, Dakota?
Just that it was in Eastern Virginia primarily. It was at the start of the slave owner culture in the United States when it was still not crown land but still colonies. And during the American Revolution, the slave owners in that area were infatuated with English gentleman type culture. They would exclusively purchase artwork from England, and they would be very anti-French sentiment, which was
Based.
kind of rare in a lot of other parts of the colonies, especially in the Yankee part. They it's just kind of unsurprising that the culture in the U.S. that sort of took over the Deep South for the Civil War would be also the side that the English would actually generally support throughout the whole thing. Government, but like the lower class Englishmen. Not even the higher class, because the upper class in the UK at that time were very anti-slavery.
Again, based.
One could even say red-pilled.
gay and cringe pilled with a working class Englishman.
Yeah. All right, so anyway, we were going back. Let us. This is the one problem with having so many people on the same stream. It is hard to stay on task because we haven't even answered the first question yet, which was whether or not can liberalism be defined as a single ideology? Because the thing is, what I've always seen it as is, at its most basic level, it is more of a tradition. Well, both an intellectual, philosophical, economic, and political tradition that self-actualized during the Enlightenment, but is the basis of all mainstream ideologies today. So, for example, American conservatism. I can't say it. Why can't I say it right now?
You did it.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just as, in terms of its basic ethos, it's just as liberal as the modern Democrats. It's just a different strain of it.
I hold by my descriptor of what liberalism is in the West is that it's entirely based on individual rights and individualism as a whole. Everything else can go out the window. It doesn't matter how you go about it. They're all just different flavors of the individual being the prime factor in society.
I mean, the only non-liberal ideologies non-liberal ideologies have next to no power in the West in the 21st century, and haven't since before World War II, or World War II and before. For instance, you have socialist parties. Yeah, they have big presence, or bigger presence in Western Europe, but they still do not have, and will never have, the kind of institutional power that will let them become as mainstream as the mainstream parties there.
And that's likely why, is because they reject the idea of the individual being sovereign.
Yeah, exactly. And then Closington, you've flirted with reactionary ideas before, I know.
I mean, on the right, I guess there are two different types of ideologies that butt heads with liberalism. I guess it's anything to do with prior essentialism and religious fundamentalism, right?
Yeah.
On the left, it's something along the lines of anything that has to do with seizing the means of production from by the government, I guess, instead of using, I guess, government intervention, seizing and nationalizing industry.
Okay.
So I guess, are there any sort of objections to that?
I have a thing. I think I've come to what I think I formulated an answer to the question, though. If you're done. So I think generally liberalism there can be a somewhat cohesive ideology and meta narrative that most people who call themselves some form of liberalism agree on, but they have different interpretations on what those core tenets mean. I think
basically what you said. I mean, it's basically so. They all share the same basic meta narrative, but they all interpret it differently.
Yeah, that's
that's kind of how I view cultures too. The Western world has the same meta narrative, but each different country, and when countries go to war, within the same culture, they're essentially fighting for the right they're fighting for the right to interpret the world picture in their way. Yep. They're fighting over the rights to interpret the world picture for the entire culture. Does that make sense? For instance, there was the German worldview back during the early 1900s, and then there was the Anglo-American worldview and then that sort of combined with the French worldview. The Germans were defeated, and the German interpretation of that Western meta-narrative no longer exists. Germany, in terms of its distinct identity and of course, just as a disclaimer, it's nothing to do about race.
How do you define the German worldview?
No,
my definition would imply that it's not at all dead. I'm not sure.
I don't know. It just seems very. I don't know. It just seems kind of sterile, honestly.
And it's definitely still the case.
But no, I just mean today at least. Like ever since like after the World Wars, for instance. Like I mean, in the German worldview was terrible during the Second World War, but like as a worldview that was still like distinctly Germany's at the time. But now it doesn't really even have its own way of viewing the world in the same way that it did prior to the World Wars. Like, for instance, like you look at Germany and like nowadays, like from a cultural perspective, and then you look at maybe France, and they almost seem like they're kind of the same. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't think you've defined it yet.
But you still need to explain what is the German worldview.
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
Okay.
Have you read Prussian Socialism?
Yes, I actually have it right. Oh, I've actually never read Prussian Socialism, but it's definitely it's a lot more. They value like whereas in the Anglo-American world, we tend to value like the general archetype of sort of the Anglo-American man is the entrepreneur, the businessman, or in even some regards, the pirate or the cowboy or the Viking. Whereas in Germany, it's the soldier. It's the soldier, traditionally, because the interpretation of individualism is very different. Because whereas in like the Anglo-American world, individualism, it's more so the individual legitimizes essentially the institutions, and it's more of a construct, and they define it. Whereas in like the old German worldview, and this is based off of sort of the Prussian ethos, it was. I don't want to say it was 100% collectivist, like in the same way China was, but the soldier, it was up to the individual. The individual's job was to not serve the state, but to help define it in a sense. I'm trying to find the words.
For how you've described it so far, I absolutely agree. That's the same way I view the German worldview, and I think that Germany very much still has that. I think the European Union is a great example of that in action. German,
yeah, but I mean, but it just doesn't seem like
it
just doesn't seem like they have much motivation, just like culturally speaking. Like, do you know what I mean?
The World War II happened, so I'm not surprised.
No, I just mean Europe in general just seems very tired.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, with an exception of maybe the UK. I think the UK and the Nordic, the UK and the Nordic countries.
People.
Well, it makes sense, isn't it? Like Europe has been scarred by centuries of geopolitical conflicts and strife and wars on the continent. Now they want to build a structure for peace that can last for over 120 years. You know, and
that was what they thought liberalism was going to do, because we need to go back to the 1800s, and what like the 1800s was defined by a very, very unique zeitgeist that the world had never before seen. And
where everyone
that was like super unrestrained, happy fucking go lucky optimism and the obsession with progress. Like, yes, we are going to move forward. Everything is going to consistently keep getting better and better and better. We are going to create one giant free trade utopia, and everybody is going to be like equal and free, and like all these things, whether capitalism, socialism, insert random idea in here, will bring a new heaven on earth.
So that's why
the birth of liberalism coincided with the birth of nationalism.
No, national. Okay, yeah, that's actually a good point because nationalism is fundamentally one of the core tenets of liberalism.
Well, I wouldn't say that exactly.
Disagree.
The foundational idea of the liberal government is that it is rationalized by the people. Hobbes is not a liberal, or wasn't a proto-liberal because
he was definitely a proto-liberal. He was definitely a proto-liberal.
It's not because it's not because he did not support monarchy, because he was definitely a monarchist, but he rationalized it in a purely secular sense,
exactly,
within the framework of the state of nature.
Exactly, and he because like a lot of people. So I was carpooling with my friend to work the other day, and we had to pick someone else up, like his friend from place where he works, and he was saying that, and this guy was the first time I met him, but very, very smart, and but there was one thing he said where he was comparing the modern day Democratic Party to Burke, which I can't actually see because they are the ones who are the Democrats. They're the ones who are like hell bent on defending all of these institutions at all costs. Like, for instance, Social Security, public school system, most recently the post office, and I'm actually fine with the post office personally. But
I'm sure the Democratic Party, that's a platform that you can really associate specifically with them.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I'm just speaking in vague terms here, just general, yeah. But anyway, but then he went and said the Republicans, they embody a very Hobbesian ethos, which I did not think made very much sense. And he just, when I asked him like what he thought of Hobbes, he started describing him as if he were like some kind of illiberal, like just because he was a monarchist, he starts describing him as if he were some kind of authoritarian. And then what I had to explain to him was, because my background is political science, and I've read a lot of Hobbes in my day, like reread Leviathan like probably 8 times over the past 8 years. But and so I was explaining to him, well, okay, Hobbes to us might not seem very liberal. He might seem pretty authoritarian. But the thing is, without Hobbes, you will not have a Locke, because Locke took what Hobbes started theorizing and then gave it a slightly more like Republican spin to it. Like took Machiavelli's concept of a republic, or Bacon, I think would probably be a better example, and then ended up using the social contract and combined it with that. Like without Hobbes, you would not have Locke. It was a progression.
Didn't Hobbes develop consent via representation?
Not exactly.
I mean, Hobbes was like very radical for it. Like he would have been considered on like quote unquote, I hate the whole left right paradigm, but he would have been considered quote unquote far left in 1649.
Like,
no, 51.
But then he developed the consent and the govern stick. Like, didn't he develop it partially in the Leviathan?
Hold on, I have Leviathan right here with me. Let's take a look.
You're just too well prepared.
I have a stack of books here. So I came so prepared to this. I even decided to bring a copy of Starship Troopers with me.
Oh,
fascinating.
Screaming.
That is a political treatise. And
yes, it is. It definitely.
Nobody
is.
Can say you can't say otherwise. Yeah. All right. So hold on.
Man, I was hoping
quantity of man. Okay, he's talking about the state of. Trying to find where religion.
Man, I was hoping we were going to talk about World War One, how it destroyed nearly everything.
Oh, really?
But okay, but speaking of World War One, that whole meta narrative of progress was
destroyed.
Yeah, it was just completely obliterated, just with the horrors of the first half of the 20th century. That's when you started getting that's when you started getting people like Heidegger like Spengler, like F. Scott Fitzgerald, like Yeats, and T.S. Eliot, just all writing very, very, very pessimistic works of literature. And that was sort of, that embodied the zeitgeist of the first half of the 20th century, just sort of a loss of faith in the certainty of progress and in liberalism in general. However, that did manage to come back eventually in a different sort of way after World War II. But then after that,
are you sure about that?
No, no. The obsession with progress. However, it's a little less. I'd say it's a little less broad. It's not as broadly deterministic as it was then. It's more as in kind of like little slivers. Like, does that make sense? Like one thing will progress, but like the entire society might not necessarily progress at once.
There are large swaths of the scientific field that does not progress anymore.
No, I'm talking about like people who who are obsessed in bringing about like literally every single political ideology or every person from every single political ideology who is vocal in the United States today is obsessed with quote unquote progress, but it's just what their vision of progress is. That's what counts. Like there is no universal definition of progress anymore, but that is partly because
the Party is very much not that.
No, but they think that they want progress. They think that what they want is progress.
Hey, Politicrat, your chat is leaking. Nuclear shit cannon 69420. Oh my god! Why do you need to abuse my Discord?
So it's glowing.
So
your comments are glowing.
So can we agree that progress is an inherently fallacious idea?
No.
Yeah.
It's like what depends on what you mean by like.
I mean, the thing is, it's not certain.
You could say like the just as there are economies of scale, there are politics of scale. In our politics, I guess the breadth and width of our politics has gotten a whole lot larger. I guess if you mean by markets expanding, the reach of certain international institutions expanding, then that's...
Hold on a second. There's a short video I'm going to play real quick that actually has to do with this. And
I'm just thinking about Nietzsche right now. In this
this video is going to... Okay, so this video is actually very Nietzschean. Just in terms of its overall...
I heard that. You're about to
He once said that the notion of progress in and of itself is a false idea.
I mean, it's not necessarily... I mean, progress exists, but progress is not a certain... Like, things progress, but things also regress. It's more of like... you guys know Heraclitus, right?
No.
Yeah.
Well, basically talked about how...
Pre-Socratic philosopher.
Yes, it was all... life was about flux and strife, essentially. And that so something might progress, then it'll go backward. And then it's basically about... Life is about enduring. And then sometimes, like, when you... do what you can to endure, your life will get a little better and it will alleviate sort of the pain that you would otherwise feel if you did not, or the suffering. It would basically, the whole point of living is to make sure you suffer as little as possible through your own purposeful action as an individual. And in a lot of, but when you get to a good place, in your life, after managing to overcome some sort of like difficulty or trial, that is not going to last forever. It's going to start fluctuating again. I think that is how I view progress, at least. That is what it realistically appears to be. So yeah, something will make progress, but it will not stay in some sort of static state of utopia or anything.
I was kind of hoping you would make a Spenglerian analogy.
Well, actually, so hold on. Actually, going to YouTube for a second, because something I think we should probably...
Your chat is so fucking different than the actual stream itself.
Yeah.
It's literally just all Spurgs.
Who cares?
I have no idea who was... Is that? I wonder if that was the LIA, or not LIA. I wonder if that was... if that's Raven's server.
Probably.
That probably is, honestly. I probably shouldn't have just. We probably shouldn't have. Or it could be the Twitter court assembly.
Hey, I mean, hey, a viewer's a viewer, you know.
That is true. But anyway, so I'm going to do a screen share.
Also, dead ass, follow me on Twitch, and if you want to be really funny, chat, you know, you could totally prank and troll.
Wait, what is it?
Shit out of me.
What the fuck
by
is going on?
gifting me subs?
Don't give him anything. Don't give him what he wants. He's a filthy communist.
What the fuck?
You forgot the shit.
Why is it like spurging out?
Hey, I'm using your capitalism to attain my needs. I'm not going to fucking not play the game if that's the current game.
I feel like
I don't know what game you're playing, but I ain't playing it.
You don't need to. I just need to attract one simp. I just need one good simp.
You need to wear very loose-fitting clothing.
Okay, guys.
Wow, I cannot hear anything.
You guys don't hear anything?
No, should we?
Yeah, you guys see? You have the screen share, right?
Do you click the share audio?
Oh,
I
Because there's a small box saying share audio when you do
can see it on
I
the
got it.
stream itself.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm not the only one to watch this channel.
I think this might be a good. This video might be a good lead-in to the next topic in general that we'll be discussing, which is going to be the origins of liberalism.
Hey, Terminator, I don't fucking need you.
Okay, Faustian man.
I see you got some Markiplier fans in chat.
See, this is basically the 1800s in the nutshell. Basically, that progress is inevitable, and it will bring about utopia. That's in Marxism. That was in utilitarianism. That was in basic bitch liberalism.
Yeah,
Even Burkean conservatism was like that because it was more based on slow reform, but eventually you'd get to that state.
What about anarchism?
Anarchism too.
Yep, it's true.
The state will wither away.
What are the core
The state will wither away, and will bring about a communist utopia, just like how the old earth and the old heaven will pass away and bring about a new heaven on earth. It's a very, very Calvinist idea.
One of the core tenets of anarchism is the individual as well. Anarchism is totally compatible with liberalism as well.
Anarcho, like Rothbard.
Exactly.
Fucking anarcho-liberals are a thing.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
we're in
fits
Rothbard.
perfectly.
Korea too. I know those anarcho-liberals. Great guys.
There's a reason why
Okay.
there's so many lefties that profess
So
to be
this is the part that I feel like is kind of important to watch. Like you guys, it's up on your screen, right?
Yeah.
Lies within Christianity. Oh, I guess Christianity did.
It is like the most optimistic religion.
That's true.
Also,
Think
yeah, it has
about
a
how
very
pessimistic Judaism
Was
is, I guess. Still, I mean, to be fair, like they've had a lot of shit happen to them over the past.
But would you
4,000
say
years.
that Christianity has a really pessimistic view on human nature and mankind, though?
Maybe originally, but okay. This is the important part. The feeling was progress was rationalized, naturalized, and secularized in the Enlightenment, turning that Christian feeling of progress into what we sort of see today, or at least what we saw yesterday, and what is being sterilized
All
today.
right,
By-
guys, I gotta go to bed. Thanks for having me on so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah, no
I
problem.
really need to go as well.
Yeah, bye.
All right, see ya.
Have fun.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. So it's just us now. It'll probably be a little easier now that it's only a few people. But anyway.
Ah, dang.
So you guys get the basic gist of that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping we'll get to the Napoleonic part, to be honest.
That was a completely different video, though.
Oh.
By that same guy. But yeah. Anyway, so we will move on to the next subject, which will be. Hold on, I have it right here. Where is liberalism on the political spectrum?
Which spectrum?
Just I'm speaking very broadly and vaguely on purpose here.
It's not really a spectrum. It is on a spectrum, but
it's the fourth dimension.
But I see liberalism as essentially as what's his name? Basically, as a commentator, Walter Russell Mead put it, there's essentially two different kinds of liberals. There's the fast Whigs and the slow Whigs. So the spectrum is: are you a progressive or are you willing to put on the speed limits and essentially be a conservative, like William F. Buckley? So,
but like I was saying earlier, conservatism, as we understand it today, especially in the American context, is itself still a form of liberalism.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And so is social democracy. Modern social democracy, not traditional social democracy, because traditional social democracy was an incrementalist plan to eventually move towards Marxism.
So overall, like if you want to do the traditional political spectrum, I would say it's on the center right. Like minimal government, market economies. You have the whole shebang. It's a perfect center right position. At least
liberalism in general?
Overall, yes. Like it's kind of hard to define because liberalism in itself is so nebulous and complex, but overall I would pigeonhole it on the center right, since it does advocate a very modest view on human nature and on institutions, on the nature of institutions, and what's the ultimate aim of their project, which is liberty through basically order liberty.
Chat is just a sea of message deleted.
Yeah, I'm just doing that.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. No. Yeah, totally. You're making sense.
So,
Thanks for not deleting my shit, but in the future, you should enable an auto mod that doesn't allow posting links.
Yeah, I have no idea how to appoint a mod, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like, we're definitely still going to keep going through with this, but I'm kind of disappointed about how this has turned out. I just feel like it's been not as coherent as the last one.
I advise next time just be more focused. That's the only way to fix that. Be focused.
Well, no, I've been trying. I've been trying to, but then everybody's going on and talking about like healthcare and World War One.
No, just ask everybody to mute their mics or something and set the topic, the stage, and you allow people to speak. That's how you fix that problem.
Okay. You think this one's salvageable, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. Being optimistic like a good old 19th century man. All right. So what I would say is, in terms of like ideal, like, okay, so I tend to view liberalism in two ways. There's philosophical liberalism, and then there is economic liberalism. Economic liberalism would be any ideology that favors the free market to some capacity. So yes, I would include the non-Bernie Sanders wing of the Democrats in this situation, or like into this category, even though they're crony capitalists, they still do favor some kind of a free market. They support private businesses, private property, all that stuff to an extent. But so there's that. So there's liberalism in the sense that like any ideology that supports a free market system, which you can also even apply to people who are philosophically and socially reactionary, even in a political sense. Like, I mean, think of like you guys know Hans Hermann Hoppe?
Yes.
Yeah. So Hoppe, for instance, he's a liberal in the economic sense, but not in the philosophical sense.
Whereas he is very conservative.
Yeah, no, but like exactly. But then you might have somebody like Noam Chomsky, who is very liberal in the philosophical sense, in terms of like enlightenment, individualism, all that stuff, self-ownership. But he is most certainly not liberal in the economic sense. So, like, did you see what I mean there? I think you can. Those are sort of the two. That's the axis right there, like the economic part and the philosophical part. I know that's a very crude way to describe it. I feel like I'm being a bit reductionist here, but I feel like that would be an appropriate way to gauge it, because liberalism at this point is just such an overused term.
Well,
that
it's part of our culture. It's basic liberalism is our cultural.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like whether we like it or not, like even people who hate liberalism were brought up in a society that is fundamentally rooted in liberalism, and therefore they have those liberal values ingrained into them from birth,
such as polarity, tolerance, and diversity. Yeah.
I mean, some of them disagree with that. I was talking more like, so it's kind of like a nurture thing almost, or a nature thing. I mean, where they cannot help but subconsciously express the values of their culture, even if they disagree with said values in some way. Like, for instance, like reactionaries, for instance, people who want to take us back to the ancien regime, they don't like liberalism. They don't like the concept of progress that the Enlightenment brought about. Yet they want to progress society to their own utopia, which is a restoration of the ancien regime.
No, it's collapsed for a reason, because of the rigidities of the feudal system, and nobody.
Exactly. I mean, like that is their own utopia, and utopianism is a fundamentally Western concept and is a prime maxim of what liberalism originally was. Like, just read Adam Smith.
But
like he basically wanted a free trade utopia where all the borders are rowed away and everyone's just happily trading with each other, and the world becomes richer and richer and richer, and then you have like whatever the fuck happens next.
Where did you get the idea that it's utopianism is a fundamentally Western construct?
No, in terms of the moral aspect of it, the aspect of a moral utopia.
So
in terms of like a material utopia, like yeah, you'll see that in other cultures, but in terms of the moral drive to create utopia, that is something.
Yeah, utopianism in like China is definitely materialistic.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
but it's more like almost more like a religious obsession in the West, and I think that is in many ways rooted in the concept of the Christian progression of time, the concept that we will eventually Jesus will return, and we will defeat Satan and the Antichrist and all that stuff, and then we'll have a 1,000-year millennium, and well, that's actually redundant, 1,000-year millennium, and then the new Jerusalem will come, and then after that, Satan will come back, and then we'll be killed again, and then after that, the old earth and the old heaven will fade away, and then that will bring about a new heaven on earth. Just look at Marxism. They have the exact same teachings are in Marxism.
Although Marxists will say the opposite of that.
Well, yeah, no, because they do not want to admit that they are Calvinists. They do not want to admit that they are secular Calvinists. Basically, Marx was very much a part of the Protestant Reformation. He was the last of the Protestant reformers. He was not religious in the sense that he believed in a God, but he was religious in the sense that he believed all of the principles that you see within Calvinism. There was just no divine emphasis to them. But just look at it this way. Eventually, so capitalism replaced feudalism. That was inevitable. Then after that, you will see socialism replace capitalism, and then there'll be a dictatorship of the proletariat for an undisclosed amount of time, aka 1,000-year millennia, or the millennium, New Jerusalem, and then after that, the heaven and earth will pass away, like Book of Revelation says that at the end. Similarly, in Marx, the state will wither away, and you get utopia. And in Christianity, of course, it's a new heaven, new earth. It's the same exact thing. It's all there. I most certainly wasn't intentional on Marx's part, but it was subconscious. It's ingrained into the culture. Like, even if you fundamentally disagree with something or hate something like a lot, like Marx said that religion was like opiate for the masses, but in doing so, he was still creating a new religion. Marxism has a theology to it, but that's something that even liberalism doesn't have. Like, you cannot say the same for just like basic bitch Enlightenment liberalism. Like, yeah, there was a strong dedication towards it, but not to the extent as Marxism.
But
like
when
Marxism,
you say that liberalism in and of itself did deify reason and rationalism,
that was the French Enlightenment mostly, and the French Enlightenment was, I mean, the French Enlightenment kind of eventually lived on through Marx-ish, but for the most part, the French Enlightenment died with the French Revolution, because that was the French Enlightenment committed suicide.
Yep.
I remember earlier, Voltaire, you were talking about, was that you who brought up the differences between the French Enlightenment and the British Enlightenment? You asked if we were going to talk about that.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't you start and tell us a little bit about that? I mean, I know we all pretty much know about it, but say what you were. Reflect on your thoughts from earlier.
Well, we are pretty much the product of Anglo liberalism and French rule. The ideas of French Enlightenment, the ideas of pretty much people like Rousseau, Voltaire, who comes to mind, the most two famous people of the French Enlightenment. The reason why their ideas resulted in the horrors of the French Revolution and the fact that the nature of their ideas and the nature of their governmental ideal was compulsory, that it requires compulsory social relations, that the state needed to act in a very paternal role, while Anglo liberalism more so pretty much allow whoever works, essentially, like allow as people who study Burke will tend to empathize that experience in our institution is the basis of our society, is the basis of our liberty, that our liberty is inherently based on experience.
It's based and red pilled.
And
Yep.
the French Revolution was inherently based on logic, which is why it failed. That's why the foundations for the French Revolution crumbled as it did quickly, because it was based on logic and extreme rationalism. That's why Burke is such an important historic and figure and philosopher, because he did point out these inherent, to use a Marxist phrase, these inherent inner contradictions with French and liberalism and the extreme rationalism that came with it. So
I think you need a healthy mix of rationalism and empiricism, because the thing is, if you have too much empiricism, you risk moving into the territory of positivism, and positivism is basically the it's the prime ingredient for nihilism in a society.
Yeah. So,
because
do you have any disagreements with my description?
Not particularly, especially not as it relates to Burke. Hold on, I actually pulled Burke out.
Yeah, you did came prepared.
Yeah, no, I have a giant stack of books. Like, I have no idea why I thought that I was gonna use all these tonight, especially because I have to go. Pardon?
Apparently, you are using this whole stack tonight.
I guess I am, or at least they're sitting here.
So,
but yeah.
So that's the difference, right? Anglo liberalism is, I would describe, more voluntary. Definitely has a more voluntary vibe.
Exactly. No, yeah, that's a great way of wording it.
In its social relations, while the French is more has to be compulsory, since it defines liberty as the state capacity to do something, while the Anglos tend to define liberty as this is my right from it. So
yeah. You see, I do agree that is a good way of putting it. And for the Anglo way, it's more like it's more based on free will in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that the French didn't believe in free will, because I mean that was a big aspect of the Enlightenment. But the thing is, the French were definitely more deterministic in their view.
I guess a better phrase is free choice.
Yeah. No, that's probably true. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, no, because for the British, it was more about, we will engage in purposeful action in order to achieve progress. Whereas the French were just like, fuck that. Let's all just Zerg rush the fuck in.
So, man, I wish there was such an interesting dialectic with the German Enlightenment, to be honest.
Pardon? What about Germans?
I don't know, like, we don't, maybe it's just my own ignorance, but I don't hear much about the German school of liberalism, their Enlightenment.
Well, you see, I mean, you have, theirs was really weird. Theirs was more metaphysical as opposed to material. Like, theirs was, like, France and Britain, their versions of the Enlightenment had a focus on materialism, whereas the German Enlightenment, and also even the Jewish Enlightenment too, were more metaphysical. So, like, one of the biggest differences between Hegel and Kant. Hegel and Kant viewed liberty, viewed liberalism in such a way where they saw it as the ends, whereas the British and the French, in their incarnations of the Enlightenment, they saw liberalism as the means, and the ends themselves were material prosperity. And that also brings me to the next topic I sort of wanted to bring up. Is liberalism an end, or is it a means to an end? Discuss.
Wow, you're so vague and nebulous with these topics, aren't you?
Is that vague? Is that vague?
I'm just
okay. Do you think? Okay, so from a moral perspective, pardon?
It's not vague. It's just difficult to formulate a response to that.
Okay, so
Plus, I was kind of joking when I say that.
Okay, but yeah, do you think that liberty for the sake of liberty is that the goal, or do you want liberty because you'll have a better life, or because you'll just be able to live comfortably in a society?
I guess another way to frame that question would be, is liberalism a pragmatic ideology?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could go with that. Do you think, because I mean, one of the biggest themes within liberalism itself is the idea of gradual reform and pragmatism. Like it's
also very progressive in its own sense that the steadfast holding to those principles will inevitably result in progress to an extent. That despite all shortcomings, the end will result, I guess, again, in sort of a utopia.
But in utopia,
I believe any political ideology could work if it's effectively implemented. I just feel like the problem is that liberalism is one of those things that is very, very dependent on how it is implemented, because it is because of how fluid it basically is. I honestly think, I mean, all ideologies work until they don't. Most people had no clue the Soviet Union would fall before it did. The whole reason it even fell was because a bunch of political fuckery by the leader of the Russian Federation within the Soviet Union, declaring independence and a bunch of stuff. Random political fuckery can happen, and it really depends on how strong the system is to resisting random political fuckery. Problem is, you make a system too strong to random political fuckery, you're basically creating an authoritarian government.
Is liberalism a means or it has an end?
I think it's definitely a means to an end. I think that the ultimate goal of keeping the individual as the first and forefront in virtually all political life. It doesn't matter if it's on an axis of authoritarian government or on the free flow of capital. It all comes down to that, and it comes down to that for the sake of the individual itself. Because the idea is that holding fast to those principles will just result in a better world. I think it's circular. I don't think it really goes anywhere else other than it's for the sake of progress.
Yeah, I mean, that makes the most logical sense. Like, I mean,
it feels like
an idea for an idea's sake, even though it comes from a deeply principled perspective, there's no really practical, like, what's the motivation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why liberalism is very easily attacked by fascists, for example, is that they're rooted in the German idea of naturalism.
I mean, there's nothing really wrong with naturalism too, because I feel like in a lot of ways, the German outlook, especially on nature, especially in terms of their morphological overview of the universe, as opposed to the evolutionary view, which is popular amongst British empiricists, and by this back during the 1800s. I feel like the morphological worldview, the more organicist concept, that explains stuff even like in some ways even more effectively, because it's more focused on metaphysics as opposed to physics.
Yeah.
And I do sincerely think that metaphysics is 100% just as important as science.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for instance, chemistry, astrophysics, biology, rocket science. Like Albert Einstein and someone like Heidegger, they were equals in terms of their contribution to society.
Going back to liberalism, though, I'd actually disagree with you on one point. I don't think liberalism is a means to an end. I think liberalism is just a means. It's a constantly going process. There isn't really an end.
Exactly.
There isn't really an end goal for liberalism. Liberalism.
It's about infinity. It's about going into infinity.
Liberals just want to be stable, and they just want to be stable for as long as possible. You even look on the social front, and I'm a leftist, so I agree with these points. I won't fault you if you disagree, but like people who are liberals are like, oh no, how can we fix the fundamental inequality between let's say between the fundamental economic inequality between African Americans and like other minorities and white people, or blah blah blah. And there are proposals for that. There are wealth redistribution proposals, there are other proposals from different sides of the political aisle. Liberals are just like, yeah, but we don't want to do those because some people might get angry at us and it might destabilize. Yeah, we're just gonna hope the problem fixes itself and maybe slowly chip away at it with small amounts of legislation, but it won't actually do anything for another 80 years.
Oh, that's so cringe. You guys know Charlie Kirk, right?
Unfortunately.
So RNC convention started tonight, apparently.
Yeah, he opened the convention.
Yeah. Who would have Charlie fucking Kirk? Oh God.
This is why
such yeah, okay. So
he
said Donald Trump is the savior. He said Donald Trump is the defender of Western civilization.
That's not the first time he said that.
Does he sincerely believe this?
Dude.
Oh no, he doesn't sincerely believe anything. He's a massive grifter.
No, I think that Kirk sincerely believes this shit.
No.
However, I think Candace Owens is the one who does not believe.
Are you forgetting that Charlie Kirk was part of the Never Trump movement? I think you're forgetting that.
I did not know that he was.
Yeah, you could look at some of his tweets prior to Trump's not his election, but his nomination to the Republican Party.
Okay.
As their choice.
Yeah, so okay, then that's kind of like, okay, honestly, that's what all the Republicans were like, though, like on the stage. Nah. Like, remember Ted Cruz? Like, Trump was bullying Ted Cruz, making fun of his wife. And then now Ted Cruz is like, well, Donald Trump, well, he's good now. And then Trump was like, oh, yeah, no, he's not lying Ted anymore. He's beautiful Ted. He's beautiful Ted. Did you not remember that?
Oh, I do remember that. I don't think that all of the Republicans were like that. I just think the major players were the ones that were the media favorites.
But yeah, I don't know.
I can't stand Charlie Kirk.
No, I can't stand. Do you know who I? Okay, do you
know who I? The RNC was planning on having an in-person event for so long. They had at least the DNC. You can criticize it all you want. It at least had good production value. It at least didn't look like something some fourth grader made to mimic a political newscast for a live stream.
Did you forget the music video that they played at the DNC convention?
Okay, look.
Oh, celebrate good times. Come on, Joe Biden. Looks like you have no idea where he is.
I said good production value. I did not say it. I did not say anything about it not being cringy.
That was bad production value.
How did this happen? We were talking about really deep moral concepts about liberalism. Now we're talking about Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk considers himself a classical liberal now,
which he isn't at all.
He's not.
Why? It was like
damn grifter. He's a grifter of ideology too.
Like remember? So okay, who would you say who is the worst of the right wing grifters?
Probably Candace Owens.
I'd say Candace Owens if I thought she was more intelligent. Which
No, the thing is, I think she knows what she's doing. I think Charlie Kirk sincerely believes what he believes.
I think the opposite. I think that Candace Owens is much less well read than Charlie Kirk is. I think Charlie Kirk.
Really? I don't know. I think Charlie Kirk didn't even go to college. Candace Owens did. I mean, I know college doesn't really.
Yeah, it's like college. Yeah. No, I mean, just looking at the type of rhetoric that Candace Owens uses, it's very simple. It's very straightforward and to the point, similar to that of Trump. But Charlie Kirk is a little bit too fanciful with his words.
He reminds me of like a college student, like who's trying to sound profound, but it just comes across as a complete
somebody who wanted to be on the debate team, but he was kicked out because he was picking fights with everyone. That's what he is.
I could believe that. I can totally believe that. No, I'm serious. And then, oh god, so do you know who I used to like? But I just can. It's not that I can't stand him anymore, but it's just like I think he's just like he's just ridiculous at this point. But Dave Rubin.
Would you wait?
I agree.
Wait.
I agree with that.
Hey, I gotta get going, people. Yeah, so peace out.
Peace out.
Just my outro. Follow me on Twitter and follow my Twitch channel, I guess. Cool. Yeah.
Oh, should I also follow your OnlyFans too?
Oh, dude, when I make one.
Wait, what happened to Alkazai?
I'll give you a free.
He had to go away earlier.
Oh yeah, he did, didn't he? No, never mind.
Yo, dude, I'll give you a free sub to my OnlyFans when I finally make it.
Your OnlyFans.
Oh yeah. Just let me know you were here, and y'all get free membership or whatever it is to my OnlyFans when I eventually make one. When I sell out everything. Anyway, peace.
That's how an e-thought is made.
That is how an e-thought is made. Anyway, speaking of e-thoughts, Candace Owens, she came out with a new book.
Oh,
today it's called it was like something black. It was a cringe title. Hold on.
Okay.
Candace Owens book. Blackout. How Black America can make its second escape from the Democratic plantation.
You think that's a bit on the nose?
No, it's just ridiculous. It's like all of these, and this goes back to So yeah, okay, there are genuine critiques to be made of liberalism, but that is not how you do it. The way you do it is by like James Burnham is a good example. Even Bill Buckley. Even Bill Buckley would be a good example. Like, they at least had coherent arguments and weren't just using buzzwords like the progressive woke machine or the regressive left is regressive.
Regressive.
Because I used to be a progressive, but now I'm a regressive. Just like it's like that. There are no arguments anymore. There are no arguments in favor or like against what they like. It's all just jargon. That's literally all it is.
Well, you're clearly not. Well, I'm just clearly you have not watched enough Ben Shapiro videos. Like,
No, like I'm not even talking about Ben Shapiro though.
I know, but I just like I want to throw.
I'm talking about like people like Dinesh D'Souza, Dennis Prager, Dave Rubin, Candace Owens.
I don't know if you could put Dennis Prager in the same bunch as them.
Well, you can definitely put him in the same area as Dinesh D'Souza. They're what I call boomer cons, the really cringy Republicans.
Okay, but just you mentioned actual good critiques of liberalism, and you mentioned Burnham. I tend to think of Burke and some other
Well, no, but the thing is, Burke though. But you see, Burke wasn't a conservative. I mean, yeah, he was. He's considered like the progenitor of the the concept of conservatism, but he wasn't a conservative in the way we think of conservatism today. He was a philosophical conservative, and that meant safeguarding cultural institutions that were necessary for society to function properly and for it to remain stable. But he still believed in reform. His whole thing was reforming gradually. It's kind of like that thing that do you guys know who Michael Malice is?
Yeah.
Michael Malice. He said conservatism has always since the beginning, conservatism has always been progressivism driving the speed limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, Michael Malice is so funny.
Yeah, dude, that guy's hilarious. Yeah, I wish I don't understand him. Something like I don't even. It's like I look at him and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And I've been watching him for like 2 years, maybe.
Speaking of Michael Malice, you ever watch this debate of Tom Woods about Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton?
Oh, he was totally trolling. Like I can't understand how he of all people would like Alexander Hamilton.
No. But this is perfect though, right? Like it shows the difference between the two type of liberalisms: the rationalistic versus the empiricist branches.
Well, no, but so I would not consider Alexander Hamilton a liberal.
Why? Wait, why not?
He wasn't a liberal. I would consider him maybe. You could say that he was definitely a Republican.
But how can that's the thing? Liberals were kind of considered Republicans.
No. When I say Republican, I mean it in the old school sense. He was not an old Whig. He was an old Whig. So, or not even that. No, he would have been a Tory at the time. He was farther to the right than Burke. Burke actually believed in democracy and in free market. Like Burke was a conservative, but at the same time, he was also associated or adjacent to the Enlightenment. Whereas Hamilton, if he could, he would have created a crypto monarchy in the United States. That's essentially what he called for. Alexander Hamilton was the villain of the United States' founding, without a doubt. And Aaron Burr did this country a service. I'm just going to outright say it. Aaron Burr did this country a service because he saved us from an inevitable Hamilton presidency.
I'm just saying.
Burr is very underrated.
I think you're being a little bit.
Oh, fun fact! I met Aaron Burr's descendant today.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, I just walked in there and I won't say how it came up because that would give away my what I do. But it was funny. They're like, "Oh yeah, no, we're related to him." And then I was like, "Oh yeah, no, he's super underrated." And they were like, "Yeah." And then I said, "He saved us from a Hamilton presidency. You should be proud of your heritage. You should be proud of your ancestry." And I was saying that to the little 6-year-old kid who was there.
So I'm just saying, this is I'm kind of shocked that you wouldn't say he was a Enlightenment, a product of the Enlightenment, part of the Enlightenment.
He definitely So he definitely wasn't a reactionary by the standards of those times, but he definitely wasn't a liberal either. So I guess in the greater European context of the time, Hamilton would have been a quote unquote centrist. But because the U.S. had such a radical, philosophical, political movement during the Revolution and after, Hamilton's beliefs in the United States would have been the farthest right you could go. He is the farthest right statesman that the United States has seen in its history.
When you argue Andrew Jackson a little bit.
No, Andrew Jackson was definitely left for his time.
No, dude.
You don't think so?
No. Actually, I can see that.
He was a strange cross between a liberal and a populist.
Americans need to get over their founding fathers. I don't know, man. I don't know, dude.
Yeah,
I'm just reading the comments. Maybe she's right. Maybe we need to progress past the founding fathers. There were a bunch of
so effeminate degenerate. I was saying he was a leftist for his own time, similar to how Thomas Hobbes would have been a quote unquote leftist for his time, and how the Crusaders would have been leftists for their time.
But
the conquistadors would have been leftists at their time because they were all about, yes, we want progress. We want to push forth, push new boundaries, make the world a better place, or at least their vision of what a better place was, which in hindsight, maybe not so much. But on that note, I feel like in 200 years, we might, like our descendants might be looking back at some of the people who are like pushing hardcore for some kind of progress, and they'll be like, oh, that was such a bad idea. Maybe even in a similar way that we look back at all the shit we pulled when we came to America in the first place, when we thought that we were doing it. Yes, effeminate degenerate, I know. I was just saying that it would have been the equivalent of left and right at the time. I know that the dichotomy was not invented until the revolution. And had to do with the conservatives sitting on the right side of the room and the quote unquote liberals on the left side, or the left side.
Damn it, she stole my point. She stole
but I'm saying that they like let's pretend that these terms did exist before then. I'm just speaking colloquially here. It would have been the equivalent of, like, there was an equivalent of left and right if you're just to apply modern terms. Maybe that's not the best way to say it because the left-right dichotomy is bullshit anyway. I think we should just abandon it entirely. But the thing is, it's like so ingrained into the political zeitgeist now that like you're pretty much forced to discuss politics using that maxim.
I don't think that having a left-right dichotomy is unnecessary. I think that what's on that axis should be something entirely different than left and right, because it's such a blur of a bunch of nonsense. It needs to be more on a scale of federalism versus centralization, because it's very clear that if you were to align people up on that, policies would match up in groups a lot simpler, hands down. When it comes to foreign policy,
just left, right. Can we all be part of a big?
Hey, you know what? No, the left wing and the right wing. They're both the left and the right. They're both two wings of the same bird. At the end of the day,
one could call it like a shape of a horseshoe or something.
So, no, horseshoe theory is liberal nonsense. Do not fall for it.
No, horseshoe theory. I mean, it's a meme anyway. I mean, it's kind of true on a base level, but like once you get down into the weeds, it's more complicated than that. Even though it's like for instance, in terms of like both sides being extremely radical and authoritarian, you could say the horseshoe theory is right about that, but that's because all extremes are authoritarian.
Authoritarianism.
Yeah, you wanna bring her on?
Yeah, why not?
Who?
Basically my girlfriend.
Is this effeminate degenerate?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
But
also, but yeah, no. Well, what I was saying was I was putting in the chat, invite more people to come watch the stream.
She's a smart cookie.
No, we can bring her on. That's fine. Yeah. I mean, this is.
You're just saying that because you guys hold hands.
Maybe.
I knew it. Simp.
Well, she's definitely worth simping for, though.
Oh boy.
Why did I say that out loud?
You shouldn't have.
Hey, Sherlock.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. But God, I feel like this one went off the deep end. This entire episode.
I think it immediately improved with the fewer people that were in here.
That is kind of true.
I think the past 20 to 30 minutes is a lot better than the beginning.
So how would you describe my performance? Have I been productive or anything?
Well, we can say that to the end.
Okay.
Yeah. But so anyway, so back to liberalism, the topic, trying to define it. Hold on. We have okay, so do you think liberalism is an inherently materialist ideology?
Yes.
No.
Why are you saying? Come on, it's obvious. Yes.
I don't think principles are material, and I think that it's a circular theory.
You know, like it's clearly material. Like in ideas, like it focuses on economics, the prosperity of humankind, and liberty. They define liberty in a very material sense, which essentially means freedom of choice, a maximum capacity to choose in that sense.
I think that the root of liberalism can be narrowed down straight down to the core to individualism. That all other things are essentially just sprinkles on top.
Like
different ways to interpret it.
I mean, like liberalism really has this Viking mentality. Like they don't choose to. How do I frame this? They don't seek to pillage, but they seek to dominate the political structure of our lives, in a sense.
There are some schools of socialist theory that I would actually be inclined to say are compatible with liberalism as well.
Oh no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Some of them, of course not Marxism or Leninism.
Well, Leninism is a party doctrine. Marxism is a whole different cans of worms.
Of course.
But
I think it really matters how far do you want to narrow it down. Do you define it more by the views of those that have read the literature on it?
Oh, she's getting ready. She's coming, but it might take a while.
Okay, that's fine.
I gave her the link.
Yeah, that works. That's fine. The link to the
Yeah.
Okay.
So she should be joining in a couple of minutes.
I wonder who the it doesn't show who the viewers are. But yeah, no, I was afraid it was gonna get low eventually. Yeah, we had like peak. We had like 12. Oh, there we go.
I saw 17 at one point. No.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you. Yeah,
Okay.
coming in loud and clear.
Hey, gorgeous.
Hey, Amir.
Oh boy. Okay. So, have you been keeping up? You've been listening to us, right?
Well, I haven't heard anything for about the past 2 minutes or so because I was too busy joining the stream and fixing a small issue with my microphone.
Okay. So, well, yeah, like this entire stream, like you obviously know what its topic is, but yeah. So right now we're just running over some basic questions to try to get to the bottom of what the fuck liberalism actually is. I mean, I know it is a coherent thing. It does have a technical definition, but that is a word that everybody seems to abuse.
True.
Like, yeah.
Left, right, and center, really.
Yeah. But so we have I wish Clausington were still here. He would have provided a nice he would have been a nice foil for this one. He would have given a very interesting view. Is liberalism a traditionally positive force in society, or has it done more damage than good? I think it's done more good for so I don't tend to see things, especially when looking at history or looking at politics. I don't ascribe any sort of moral acumen to it. So I think that you kind of have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. I think that generally, like, liberalism and the Enlightenment brought us in a direction that is, I guess, more positive. than negative. I mean, definitely you have reactionaries would completely 100% disagree with me here, but like you have some positive features that are brought about, like for instance, like the economic system, basic economic system.
Yes.
And then, yeah, exactly, lifting millions of people out of poverty worldwide.
Well, to me, the main utility of liberalism is that it provides a perfect launching point for a better tomorrow. You know, the way that it destroys traditional guild society.
Wait, what happened?
I don't know. That other person exited the call.
He'll
I have no
come
idea
back.
why.
He will come back.
Oh, cool. Oh, yep, there he is.
Yep. When someone joins the stream, I can't hear a word they're saying until I reconnect.
I see. Okay. So shall I start from the top?
Yes.
All right. So I see liberalism mainly as a good thing because I see it as a launching point for a better tomorrow. You know, capitalism tearing down all of these trade restrictions and, you know, liberalism, I think, is in many ways the ideology of capital.
Exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a fundamentally economic ideology. And then this all goes back to what Hayek talked about, like the road to serfdom, which we were talking about at the beginning of the stream. He argued that, so you have people who are socialists who support, for instance, like they say they support individual liberty, political rights, all that stuff. But the thing is, you cannot have that under a socialist system, but like naturally, because socialism always becomes fascism by necessity in the end, because it simply does not work.
It's an interesting interpretation.
Yeah, no, but the thing is, in individual
because
liberty,
it does sort of turn the usual liberalism leads to fascism by default on its head. I would say that I don't want to be so absolutist. I think that I don't see any sign that Rojava is going to turn into a fascist state a la Bashar al-Assad anytime soon. Meanwhile, you know, something like Brazil or America, I think there's a lot more causes for concern there, where you're having policemen being thrust to the voting polls.
Okay. Yeah, that is true. I mean, I don't think you can be absolutist about like these sort of things. I think it's not necessarily wrong to generalize to an extent if you're just speaking broadly.
It's true because, I mean, without generalizations, conversation becomes impossible.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're living in an age that is so fucking specialized that generalists aren't taken seriously.
Unless they're Walmart.
No, I mean, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, for instance, if somebody let's say somebody has was educated, got a degree in political science and English, they double majored or whatever, and then ended up minoring in philosophy or something. And then let's say this person decides to write a history book and decides to incorporate a bunch of things into it to try to explain some sort of like some wider thesis. And so he talks about art, he talks about literature, he talks about architecture, things that he has no educational, like he was not formally educated like in like study, like art studies or music studies or architecture or whatever. And so he's writing about this, and then people will criticize him for writing about this. It's like, oh yeah, no, you didn't specialize in this. This isn't your field. This is ridiculous. You're not a serious academic. It's like, just because somebody does not have a degree or was not formally educated in this area does not mean that they are not allowed to incorporate these aspects into what it is that they are writing.
Yeah.
Because they can still understand it just as well, potentially even more than somebody who was trained in that specialized field.
Well, oftentimes it allows people to have a new perspective. I believe it was a psychologist who coined the, I think it was a 2000 theory on economics, where he exposed how economics was depending on everyone acting as rational actors all the time, when in fact it's very unrealistic to expect human beings to act as rational actors. And you shouldn't be planning economic systems around that model.
See, that is my one problem with the Austrian school of economics. It relies on the assumption that, or no, is it even the Austrian school, or is it really just objectivism? Because I know
yeah, it's Ayn Randian objectivism.
Yeah, see, I mean,
Ayn Rand is just a disaster. I don't see how anyone aside from her cultists can really
and
find the value.
16-year-olds.
Yes.
But there's this great quote, and it was
It's gonna make Rucka cry.
There are two books. Oh, hold on, I need to pull this shit up. It's actually hilarious.
That you can read at 12. One is
Lord of the Rings. One is the other is Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged. Yeah, but that's the punchline. Because
one of them is a sweeping fantasy of something.
Epic proportions that will poison young minds forever, leaving you depressed and completely unable to cope with the real world. The other, of course,
has
orcs.
Yeah. And I've never read Ayn Rand. Believe it. I've read some of her nonfiction.
Really?
But I've not read Atlas Shrugged. I feel like
they made a movie.
I believe, sponsored by a billionaire, and it was set in 2012 because they were hoping people would vote out Obama.
It was I think it was a really well put together movie, and there were just a couple scenes that were a little bit heavy handed, but that's just because they were quoting directly from Ayn Rand.
Well,
and Ayn Rand
can't really do anything with Ayn Rand's material.
She did not write realistic dialogue.
You cannot turn at a certain point, trying to make a good movie based off Ayn Rand. You can't polish a turd and expect it to be beautiful.
No, genuinely, that movie was actually really well made.
The Fountainhead is actually
narratively it was fantastic.
Well, the thing with that one is that it was before she became a bit too ideological, and she was able to write nuanced characters with relatable things before she came up with this stupid idea that villains are like inherently repulsive and ugly and fat and weird-eyed and they can never do anything properly.
She started over sexualizing all her macho male heroes and all that.
Yeah, it's just she's what a kooky woman.
Yeah.
I really highly recommend the movie because it's like the Gilded Age comes back is essentially the premise of it.
I thought the Gilded Age would be
that's her goal. That's like her political idea.
Yeah. No.
The Gilded Age wasn't even as bad as it's like.
No, the Gilded Age was pretty bad.
The Gilded Age
that's part of U.S. history that I think I specialize in. Gilded Age
the robber barons I still think were a net positive in a lot of ways because they did improve a lot of people's lives.
Why you cannot say Captain Industries robber barons?
Voltaire, this is just political correctness from the right.
Yeah.
Just saying. We got to think about optics, right?
Yeah.
Optics.
I'm neither on the left nor am I on the right.
An enlightened centrist.
No one likes an optics.
I'm part of the dissident center. I'm a dissident centrist, guys.
The radical center?
No, not the radical. No, you have the dissident left. You got the dissident right. I'm the dissident center.
No, you're a post-neo alter center.
I'm an alt centrist. I'm part of the alt center.
You're post-neo alter center.
Oh, and I'm a cultural Marxist.
No, you're you're a neoliberal, neo-Marxist, postmodernist. Clean the room.
Wait. At least I found one. Huh.
It seems that Jordan B. Peterson has wandered into a Victorian novel. He is, started wasting away of some sort of disease based on his diet and depression after receiving tons of praise and attention, and then found himself wandering around in Siberia. And then while he was on a travel in Serbia, he caught a virus, and now he is lying there, on his dying bed. It's really quite baroque.
Sad.
Is this
It
one
is
of those
sad.
Jordan B. Peterson fan fictions I hear so much about?
No, it's his life.
Isn't he also an alcoholic? I heard he has like
no.
He had developed an addiction to some sort of antidepressant.
No.
Yeah.
I think when he was like younger, in his like 20s, he like had a.
I don't believe that he was ever a heavy drinker, for at least from how he's described his life.
Oh, I thought maybe I'm thinking of.
I don't think he was ever
I
a
have
party
no idea
goer
why I'm
either.
associated with it anyway.
Party goer.
Yeah.
But no, okay. So I've always been relatively agnostic on Peterson, but then
I'm a huge fan.
But
Yeah,
no, but then,
I'm a bit biased because I'm part of the group he tried to deny rights to.
What?
She's Canadian, man.
He tried to basically lie about the trans rights bill that was passing through Parliament and said that it was forcing people to use trans pronouns, even though it wasn't, and it was just extending labor and healthcare protections to trans people. And he started this whole right-wing campaign that a ton of people in my life actually bought. So
we
yeah,
could do a whole stream on that, and I would argue with you endlessly about that.
I just
the thing is, I don't pay attention to the political aspects of him. I just like his archetype stuff. Like he reminds me a lot of Joseph Campbell, and
I like his self-improvement stuff.
So
yeah,
I like the Kermit the Frog memes.
Yeah, those are funny.
So, do you like the Jungian psychoanalysis bits?
I literally just bought a book by Jung today.
Nice.
Very first book I bought by him. Which one was it?
Freud.
What?
Are you into Freud?
Like, I mean, he's interesting, but everything just goes back to dicks in the end.
Well, that's because he was obsessed with penis, and so he assumed that everyone else was too.
I mean, who isn't up top?
It's funny. We are losing viewers. Like last time, we had some pretty good views, but this time
it's 12 a.m.
Sure. We went till 1 a.m. last week. But anyway, but okay. So back to, I feel like everything's going back again to the main topic of the stream. But Peterson says that he identifies as a British, like a classical British liberal in the vein of John Stuart Mill. Would you say that is accurate?
Oh yeah.
Well, I think he believes that he identifies that way. Whether his actual politics carry that out remains another question.
But the thing is, he doesn't even really talk about politics all that much. I feel like people are going off of like a handful of things that he said, half of which, and then half of.
Do you know how he became popular?
He did not
become popular for the right reasons. He should be popular for completely different reasons than he is. That is my opinion. Because I do think his ideas have merit, but they are not. But he's not popular for the right reasons, and I don't think he'll ever be able to become popular for the right reasons at this point. Like.
I think the base around him has done a better service. They don't even
understand it. It's like neither the left nor the right, like his critics or his simps. They don't understand what he's talking about. They don't know.
Too big brained. He's too high end for them to possibly comprehend.
No. Their brains have to go into recovery mode due to all those high power important ideas.
I do think that generally the largest critic mass against Peterson really just fundamentally does not understand the intentions or the purpose behind
metaphysics.
Why he touches on things that are outside his field when they barely even brush against one another. I'm
not necessarily critical of him being interdisciplinary per se. I'm just more generally, I despise his opinions on trans people. I think no man has done more to prevent trans rights from being passed in Canada than Jordan B. Peterson.
From what I understand, he said that like if he hasn't if he's talking to a trans person, he will use their pronoun, their preferred pronoun, but he just was against the principle of the government fining people for offending somebody.
Keep in mind that
yes,
the
but
argument
that's
wasn't the
what he
legislation
marketed
itself.
himself as, but it was false. It was a lie. No one actually bothered to read the bill that he was complaining about, which basically
You're right,
involved
but-
labor protections for transgender people.
But it's the exceptions created to support the
And
rule that he
moreover-
disagreed with. It wasn't specific text in the legislation that was so far outside of already existing Canadian legislation.
But
That wasn't the point at all. It wasn't that at
create
all.
that narrative to begin with, though.
He doesn't agree with the ideology behind the trans movement being added to this text because the text itself.
Yeah, see,
is
there
already
we go again. That's the prime motivation for conservative transphobia in Canada.
That's not
No,
transphobia.
it's about trans ideology.
That's not
This is what
transphobia.
they always do. It's not about racism against Black people. Oh no, we're against the Black radicals, the Black nationalists.
That's not
Those
comparable.
are the problem. You
The
know,
plight-
I'm
the
not
plight of
against
the-
gay people or lesbians. It's the gay agenda.
No,
It's what they always do. The social conservatives
It's not
shift the
comparable.
bases.
that's
and
not
blame-
comparable. It's an unfair comparison.
Well, you
that-
can shout it's not comparable all day long, but
Well, I'm prefacing this. The ideology behind the transgender movement being added to the LGBT acronym, they're not compatible with the principles that started the movement in the first place.
the movement was started by Black trans women.
No, it was not started by Black trans women.
Yes.
Where,
and
where,
part
where was
of-
it started by Black trans women? I've never heard that before.
Oh, then you
I'm-
really
I'm-
not frequent the same.
No, I am
person.
very in depth on this.
Hey,
I
let's
don't
Please
believe-
enlighten me on this.
Guys, let's get back
Hey,
on the. Let's get back on
It
the.
does seem like this deserves an episode all in its
It
own.
really does.
Yeah, I was
very-
about to, okay, we
Very
can
far
understand
off
that.
from liberalism, and it's
Hey, so let's move on.
Surprisingly, we're not, and I could say why, but
But yeah,
So-
no,
go ahead say
um,
why if you
no,
feel
but-
no, because it,
best.
But I mean,
So-
I don't
we're saving it.
understand what about But what about Peterson is particularly illiberal? Like, I mean, he's never. I mean, I don't understand. Like, people have called him a fascist before. I have never heard him say anything remotely fascistic. I mean, I guess you could use some kind of like crazy mental gymnastics to justify
well, it goes
that.
back
If you
down
think
to what I said before.
Yeah, he's not fascistic. He's just bargain basement conservative in a way that identifies everyone, to the right of, I don't know, Justin Trudeau as some sort of crypto Marxist.
Yeah,
I don't know
okay,
where you got that idea.
my biggest criticism of him is he has no idea what postmodernism is.
Are you serious?
No, he conflates postmodernism with neo-Marxism.
He conflates it because other people conflate it.
That's a terrible defense.
That he
It's
should
not a
make.
terrible
He
defense.
should make a distinction. That's the thing. He needs to make.
I think he's made the distinction before.
No,
I think
he
that he
hasn't.
specifically.
This is my legitimate criticism of Peterson.
You've read Foucault, right?
No, because the thing. Yeah, I've read Foucault. Yes, but
I don't
he,
know how
no,
you
but the
would
thing
understand that.
No, but Foucault
Sounds
was not.
like a better
Foucault
example.
was not a socialist. Foucault, like on economic issues, when he spoke about economics, the few times he did, he was pretty economically liberal, free market.
Plus, didn't
But
he became a
yes,
liberal?
Foucault
no,
did
because-
identify as a classical liberal at several points. in
Yes,
his life.
yeah, exactly. Especially later in life. But the thing is, the difference between so postmodernists and Frankfurt School people, the Frankfurt crowd, they I understand why people would confuse them because they say similar things, but they want very different things. I mean, I don't think they realize that they have some things in common, but they have different like agendas. For instance, the biggest thing is that postmodernists reject meta narratives, whereas the Frankfurt School is all about destroying all of these other meta narratives so their meta narrative can succeed. Whereas postmodernists just want to destroy every single meta narrative.
Well, I mean,
Postmodernism is the
Marxists.
vehicle for neo-Marxism. It's not that they are so similar that it's easy to confuse. It's just a vehicle for it. Anything could have came in with it.
See, this is the fundamental issue because I think the postmodernists were very critical of Marxists in their day. And that requires erasing that history if you're going to pretend that, oh no, they were a vehicle. And this is what conservatism loves to do. It loves to pretend that every new movement on the left is secretly a vehicle for Marxism. I mean, they even did it with environmentalism.
If it
Green on the
exists in
outside,
the
red on the
universities in
inside.
that form, how is it anything other than a vehicle for neo-Marxism? If you can literally see it and measure it, if it's been polled already in Gallup, I don't understand. It's there. It's plain to see. You can Google it and you'll find it within the first 5 results.
Well, my personal opinion is that I believe the left should do what the conservative sphere were doing. I believe that Marxists should infiltrate through the universities and the academia and the bureaucracy and the culture and destroy conservative social values.
I'm so transphobic now. You're making me a transphobe.
Well, go ahead. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, this is not anything to do with me being trans.
I didn't know you were.
Being,
yeah, no, I would have never guessed. I would have never guessed.
It's completely to do with me being far left. But it's not a tactic that the left is doing. I wish it was, because it would be very successful. But bar and large,
for accelerationism, maybe.
Well, yeah. I mean,
for the violence of it all.
Well, not the violence of it all.
Well, you got to have that with accelerationism. You can't have it without the other.
So, man, how we got to Peterson to post-modern neo-Marxism? Are we supposed to talk about
this trans propaganda that just gets under my skin?
Yeah, I know. The trans propaganda gets under his skin.
I do think that there
I don't
is
think you know where I stand on that at all.
So much.
Does he represent? Is he a? Would you say he is in any way an accurate representation of any strand of liberalism?
Peterson, yes.
Peterson?
Easily.
I'd say yes. I'd say he's definitely a Burkean. Like, I'd say he's a Burkean, but he's like that old Whig type. I think that might be the best way to describe it.
There is such a thing as liberal conservatism. So I suppose you could say that he is a liberal conservative under a generous interpretation.
However, I've heard some people refer to him as a libertarian, but I don't see that.
No, not at all.
I cannot see that at all.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, no one wants to be a libertarian. Ugh.
Wait. I can't sell children now?
What about the ethical market in children?
Nah.
Yeah.
Let me sell
child labor laws.
I mean, okay, so child labor laws, those were good ideas. I'll outright say that was probably a good idea.
Yeah, of course. Some of them are a little bit too far, though.
So really? Okay, so in terms of labor law, I think it's stupid that, for example, there is a law that forces you to go on, like, take a lunch break. Like, what if you don't want to take a lunch break? What if you just want to keep working?
Well, a lot of the restaurants,
even if you negotiated, even if you negotiated with your employer, like, I mean, you're not allowed to do that. Like, you can't just say, hey, you know what? I voluntarily surrender my rights to have lunch today. But you're not allowed to do that. That's illegal. It's just arbitrary. It makes no sense. Like, if
a lot of the service industry does ignore that, though. That they don't take breaks because there's not really a necessary need, and there isn't a governmental board that's staring down their neck. It's only until they're audited does it become a problem.
I think there is a necessity for breaks in some situations, and people often overestimate their ability when signing contracts that they will later come to regret at a certain point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have the problem with the whole idea that unless you're 17 in some states, you can't work past 9 o'clock. You can't have a shift longer than a certain amount of hours, even if it's way below 8 hours, regardless of whether or not they're in school or not.
Yes, so I have a
use of knives, the use of certain machines that are not dangerous, or they are dangerous because of a technicality. Things with blades in them. It's like,
don't
let the dumb kid touch the blade.
So yeah, there's this like really nice grocery store like in my hometown. It's walking distance from my house. It's only 3 miles. I walk there quite a bit.
What is it? Whole Foods?
No, Wegmans.
Oh, Wegmans is great.
Yeah, no. There's a microwave at Wegmans on the upper floor, in the cafe area, and it's if you are under 18 years old and work here, you cannot use the microwave. And it's like it's a fucking microwave. It's like what? Yeah. No, but that part is arbitrary though, especially because I had a coworker who, she was not yet 18, but she didn't finish high school. Instead, she took her GED and was like, "Okay, I want to work full time." She was not allowed to work full time because she's not 18, even though very
So
mature.
they'll just
very-
have to juggle 2 or 3 part-time jobs to make it overly complicated in order to get enough.
I don't.
money.
Yeah,
It's like,
are they
damn.
allowed to do that? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there are some state like California. I wouldn't be surprised if California doesn't allow that.
I think that there isn't a single state that prevents someone under the age of having multiple part-time jobs. I think that
Well,
would
that's good.
require too much
you never
government
know what's
oversight for them to
happening
really
next.
look into that.
But yeah.
I mean, by and large, I'm happy for child labor laws to verge more on the draconian than to be too lax. That's a much better result in my book.
Yeah, no, for me, it's like that. Like anything involving children,
Yeah, I mean, they have to
feel
be
like-
protected.
I feel like they have to be protected. Like age of consent laws, for instance. Like I look at all these ANCAPs like on Twitter.
Are they really that common? I mean, there can't be that many
They're
pedophile
not
libertarians.
common, but they're a loud minority.
I'd say
Yeah.
about 5% of the population are pedophiles.
Oh yeah,
Probably.
no, there
Yeah.
are a lot of there are quite a few ANCAPs that I've seen.
Our government seems to be filled with them.
I've seen quite a few ANCAPs.
Heard
on
his
Twitter.
laughter.
Not
you
just
ANCAP
government, though, like private industry as well.
The
You guys hear
wealthy media, etc. Yeah, no, we're just
Oh,
brainwashed.
Not
okay,
just
okay.
culture and entertainment. All sorts
Well,
of
I was just saying, I've seen a lot
anyone
of
with wealth and power, usually they tend to like access to these young girls.
Yeah, it's
Well, yeah,
true.
I've seen a lot of ANCAP accounts on Twitter that have in their bio pro-map.
What?
Ugh.
You know what a map is?
Ugh.
It stands for minor
It's
attract-
it's the politically correct term for pedophile.
Yeah,
Just
no, and they're trying. and
pedophile is the
there are-
politically correct term for.
Politically
and
poisonous.
there are some of them who are like actually, and this is not a conspiracy theory. There are some people who are trying to mainstream it and make it part of the wider LGBT.
Yeah, they're trying to add it as
Well, yeah, I would say that was a way more common element in the 70s, actually. Like Foucault
Really?
signed
Yeah.
a petition to lower the French's age of consent laws to
Well,
13.
they're French. They like
come on, you can't just say France is an exception.
No,
They're-
no,
they
this
were a
was
major
also
country.
true in GLAD as well. Like the
Oh, yeah.
conservatives would have been right had they said the gay movement is very pedophilic in the 1970s. I would fully agree with them there. It was actually NAMBLA actually did have a bit of influence then. Nowadays, it is. There's probably still some people who want to do it. I've encountered them in my life.
It's mostly
I've
like
encountered them in my life.
It's mostly like creepy Christian pastors and priests and hot teachers.
At this point, the worry is more about the mental health of the individual kids themselves
Yes,
than it is about
exactly.
than it is about protecting them from sexual actors. It's more about leading them to develop their own sense of sexuality much too early. It's the
Well,
drag queen
that
kind of
can
stuff.
be a very
That's the main
no.
point of contention on the right at the moment.
So
Yeah,
okay, on that
I mean-
note, I am going to. Where is the? Okay, I'm pulling up the list again. We're gonna move on to our next
Oh,
the next point.
liberalism seems so boring now, though.
Well, I mean, it is no, but
Just being
He
honest.
wants to
the reason I wanted to do this topic for the stream
Conspiracy.
today.
Ah.
The reason I wanted to do this topic today is because terms like liberal and conservative at this point, they used to be definable things that everybody agreed on. I mean, there still are definable things in the objective sense, but not everybody knows what they actually are. Whereas everyone once at one time did get a sense of what these things were, but now they're just like throwing these terms like, what is, I mean, I think we can make an entirely different episode focused specifically on conservatives and what the hell conservatism means, because I think that's even more nebulous of a term than liberal is. But
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Oh yeah,
conservatism can mean anything from
conserve what?
liberal conservatives. It can mean anything from kind of moderate right.
because for me, I consider myself
elite,
I consider myself socially progressive and culturally conservative.
culturally conservative. Ooh.
Yes. No. Okay. So get this.
Oh, I've heard culturally Christian, not culturally conservative. Interesting.
No, so I say I'm very, very pro marriage. Just the institution of marriage, I think it is, and the nuclear family, I think those are fundamental aspects or I think they foster a successful society, a healthy society, a just as institutions in general. I'm not going to go into detail about that because I'm going to go on a tangent there. But the thing is, so I am very, very pro-marriage. Straight marriage, gay marriage, non-binary marriage. I don't care. As
long as it's
marriage,
two people together making kids,
marriage
right?
in general.
Like no polyamory, though.
I mean, if you don't get the kids involved in it, if you do it like behind if you're like a swinger, that's one thing. I mean, I don't necessarily not my thing, but like, I mean, if you want to do it, that's fine. But yeah, no, not polyamory. I think that, I mean, I wouldn't make laws against it or anything, because then that would be because I'd be betraying my principles. But I don't think that it is healthy for society if that is.
Yeah. You look in chat in the comments.
I think I do agree with you, but for the nuclear family, straight marriage, I don't, or even gay marriage, honestly, I don't see marriage as a useful thing. You said that you are, what was it? Socially progressive, culturally conservative?
Yes.
I am economically far left, socially far left, and culturally far left.
I figured.
Yeah. That's
wait, Voltaire. Voltaire, this is your girlfriend?
Yes.
Voltaire,
Voltaire, I thought you said you were basically a reactionary the other day.
I said I was basically conservative.
Well, who dates people just because, oh my goodness, we have the exact same political opinions?
Well, no, it's just so
okay. I mean, today, in this day and age, I mean, people don't even want to be friends with each other if they disagree on 5% of the issues.
Oh, well, that's different for me. My main thing is, are you racist? Are you bigoted in some way? Yes, no, okay, then I can be friends with you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No, yeah, I agree too. I actually think it would be more fun to eventually get married to somebody who I completely disagree with on politics. That would be.
You got a lot more discussion.
You have to have some fundamental axes to agree on, but everything else can be completely the opposite.
Well, I mean, Voltaire and I agree on the importance of discussion, agree on the importance of listening. I think we also agree that the president is useless.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So my most radical belief, I'd say, is I believe we should abolish the office of the presidency.
Oh, that's a very radical take. I love it. Very well done.
Why?
Pardon?
Can you explain why? That's interesting.
Too much centralization of power in the hands of one man. Instead, what we should do is, okay, actually, I'm about to go up on a rant. This actually deserves to be a completely separate topic of its own.
I have a feeling.
Long story short, I think we need to divide the office into multiple executive positions, an executive council of 12, 16, something like that. Each one occupies
the consuls.
Got a great example of that.
Each one occupies a different sphere of influence, controls like a different part of the bureaucratic system, but there's also crossover. So for instance, let's say you have like one agency or bureaucracy. So one of the counselors or executives will control some aspects of that, and then like some aspects of the CIA, and then let's say you have another completely different. So they're forced to work together essentially.
They're like the UK ministries.
The CIA in the first place. Why not merge it with the FBI?
No, well, that's besides the point though. But I mean, what I mean is, so get rid of the president, and you have these executive positions. So they cannot be partisan. They can not run on any sort of party platform. And so there are 2 term limits. One term is 8 years, and every so let's say there's 16 of them. That means every 2 years, 4 of them are up for re-election. So there's a constant cycle of electing the executive branch, and that will, I feel like, foster a culture that is very civically active instead of like becoming lazy for 4 years and then everyone like coming up to that. Like,
you would end up with a very similar situation that Belgium has, and that they have many, many councilmen for every single aspect of governmental life.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you only have these ones. You only have these ones. So basically, think about like if we elected cabinet members.
You mean like the UK ministers?
I mean, you can make.
I mean, they have a prime minister, but it's very.
But then but then I also think we should
powers are
separate.
delineated between many individuals.
I also say what we should do is we should separate the office of the or we should separate the head of state from the head of government. What we should do, what we should do. So head of government should be involved with Congress, very similar to a prime minister. And then the head of state, or the head of state, the commander in chief, who would be sort of the ceremonial leader. So let's say, the people elect this hypothetical inner council of 16 or whatever. We can call it whatever. Let's just call it. Let's call it. No, never mind. We don't have to give it a name. But so then what they do between the 16 of them, they will end up voting for it. It can't be one of them, but they will end up appointing somebody to be the commander in chief. So, and then the commander in chief, let's call him the imperator or something, because that's Latin for commander in chief. This person will have all of the executive responsibilities that the President of the United States has in terms of in terms of defense and in terms of statesmanship, in terms of diplomacy, all that, but they cannot make domestic laws, like domestic executive orders. And then they'd also be the face of the country. They'd give the addresses, they'd do state visits, all that stuff. Think of a Principate type system.
It's clear that you've put a lot of thought into these plans.
I've been devising this system since I was 16.
That's nice.
Originally, it was based off of the I know Dakota. Did you ever play the Star Wars: The Old Republic MMO?
Very little.
I don't know if you remember the Dark Council.
No.
Okay, well, of the Sith. That was the original base of the system I created, and then it actually became serious. And then
I can understand why you started coming up with this at 16.
Man, you're such a nerd, man.
But then it took something on of its own, and then also my idea for justices. So I think it's a conflict of interest that the President of the United States he's the one who appoints the justices. Yeah, I know the Senate.
Of course.
I know the Senate, or Congress in general, they have to approve them, and there's a vote and everything, but that's just all theater. Most of the time, that's just theater. I think that it's a dangerous precedent to set if the president is the one who gets to appoint the justices, because it almost makes the courts an extension of the executive, albeit in a very loose way. I mean, not directly, but
and if you start adding new justices, as has been attempted several times and potentially might succeed at one point or another.
Well, no, that's not what I am advocating for.
But I never said you were advocating it. I'm saying that it adds to your point that it's an extension of the judiciary in America, specifically the Supreme Court, can often be, in a way, an extension of executive power. If that were to come to pass, then that would be even more the case, because then it would be possible to cram the court to an even greater degree, adding more and more justices whenever the fancy felt like it.
Is it the case, though, historically throughout the U.S., it seems that the Supreme Court justices, they don't generally follow the political philosophy of the existing president?
Yeah, usually they can be far more conservative. I would
maybe in the past 20 years, but even Supreme Court justices that were around
in the 1970s and 60s, you're right, they actually leaned quite to the left of the executive.
It's been a bit back and forth every 50 years or so.
And that is actually an issue I have with the judiciary. I really think we should just let, people who are, in the field actually elect. Why not have people who are actually judges elect the judges?
Okay. This is where I'm leading to right now. So my system for choosing Supreme Court justices would be, after a justice retires or dies or something, get all the federal justices together. They all convene in one place. They do not leave the room until 2/3 of them decide on who is going to take the next spot. So it is the justices are chosen by the justices. They're chosen by the court system itself.
Yeah,
And
I really like that idea.
Think of like how the Pope is chosen.
Why not chosen in the very same way that senators were initially chosen, to have them appointed by the governors of each state?
That's not how senators were originally. No, senators were originally voted on by the House legislatures.
Well,
they weren't appointed by governors.
The governor was the one that decided it for most of the states.
Oh, yeah. But again, that was mostly just most of the time was just
why not have it like that?
I mean, no, I think it makes more sense to have the to have like a college, or to have the federal justices choose which one among them will be. It just makes more sense.
An insular political class.
It's more. I feel like it also reflects sort of the ethos of liberal Republican values more as well.
You don't think that would result in a more in sort of an alternate political class that's completely separate from?
But that's only going to be with the courts. They're only going to have influence. But I think
only a third of the influence. It's necessary to have them be separate from the electorate if they're going to have any proper check on democracy.
That's why
we talk about the rule of the majority, the rule of the minority. Well, if there's any way to actually prevent these things, then there needs to be a separate pole of power. What the Politicrat has suggested is a very sensible way of establishing this separate pole.
Yeah, and I also I'd say that crap. I was about to say something.
Oh, really?
What was that?
I didn't know this.
Yeah, I know. What was it? It's gonna come to me eventually.
Perhaps.
I don't know. It's gonna come back to that. I hate when this happens. This is like my least favorite thing to happen. When I have something I'm about to say, completely forget it. But yeah. Anyway, so fuck. Okay, moving on. Oh yes. Now I remember. So Lapis, you said you're pretty far left in your politics. Yet I've actually never talked to somebody who considers themselves like that left wing, who has advocated for having checks on democracy, and has advocated for at least some kind of advocated for the existence of some kind of an elite. And that actually makes me wonder, have you ever read George Sorel before?
George Sorel? No, I haven't.
Okay, you just like basically
the reason I I suppose it's an elite, but it's an elite based on it's based on ability.
Yeah, meritocracy essentially.
Social, but an actual meritocracy, not the fake meritocracy.
Oh no, I agree. I mean, and that's why I don't like when people vilify meritocracy, because they seem to think that this of which we call meritocracy, which isn't actually meritocracy, is meritocracy when it is not.
Well, it's the assumption that all inequalities come down to an oppressive state.
Exactly. And what they do is, and this is why, so like I said, I adhere to the liberal tradition. I am in that tradition. And it upsets me to see people who completely misunderstand or who completely conflate what liberalism actually is with liberalism, quote unquote, as it exists now, which is really just a corrupted form of it. Like, for instance,
the pure concept versus the practical implementation.
No, not even that, because I think that
always happen.
Oh no, yeah, I definitely agree. But like, I mean, it's never going to be perfect. But I think that what we have now is, I think the best way to put it, but like, it's never going to be perfect. But what we have now is ridiculously bastardized. It's not like natural bastardization. It's like that taken to the extreme. It's still some of the best we've had. And no doubt. How bastardized it is in that sense, it makes me wonder if the system itself is the best one, or that there's something else besides the system that has resulted
in this crazy ass prosperity.
Hey,
Be capitalism and not liberalism.
Economic prosperity, but how sustainable is it really on the grounds of the environment? How much can this quote unquote prosperity be sustained?
It's sustainable for a society versus sustainable for the individual. I think the individual is a lot more easily sustain their own sense of security and the growth of their individual family, but on a grander scheme, it's not sustainable.
so
The individual and society are not desperate qualities. They are things with lots of overlap. I think that's the central mistake that people make.
So, Democrat, what do you think of The End of History?
I'm actually reading it right now, and so I think he makes some good points, but so I'm writing a history book right now, and this will probably sum up. You'll probably get a sense of what my view on it is after reading this quote of mine. I say, history never ends. She merely finds new ways of retelling her story.
I love that quote.
That is the end. That is the final quote, or that is the final line of my introduction. And my introduction is about 100 pages long.
Impressive.
It's very good. Yeah. I like that a lot.
But basically, the thing is, peace, in utopia, perfection, that's a dream. Violence is a fact.
Yeehaw.
That's, I mean, I don't like that that's the case. I'm just saying, I'm describing the world how it is, not
exactly.
How I would like it to be.
Violence is an inevitable part of life. We can try to reduce the violence, and we can try to minimize the suffering.
Because,
but
hold on, hold on. I one of my, like I said, I prepared. Pulled out some books before I did this stream, so I could cite some stuff. Where's the quote?
You're too prepared.
I am. I'm more prepared than.
Are you going to destroy me now? Is that it?
What?
You destroyed?
What? No.
Oh, what I believe is the end of history is generally correct, like in the sense that.
I don't think liberal democracy is the final expression. I mean, I think that part is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, because
himself has admitted that.
Let's face it. The Romans during the Roman Empire probably thought the same thing. Oh, this is the greatest thing that's ever come. Like under Emperor Trajan, they were probably like, look how glorious our empire is. Look how peaceful it is.
It will never end.
Exactly. Like it was. And there was a reason Ovid, when he was writing his Metamorphosis, he brought back Hesiod's or 5 Ages of Men, or 5 Ages of Man, and wrote about how they finally returned to the Golden Age, because it was all about like the cycles of Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, Heroic Age, Iron Age, rinse, repeat. But
I don't know. Like, I think he really makes his case. He
definitely makes a good case. I'm not going to deny that.
Well, you can make a good case at the time,
but he's not.
Have to look at the historical record right now, and if your grand theories do not hold up to what has happened historically, then they can't be held on to.
Yeah, historical first, for sure.
Just if he's right, that liberal democracy is the final. What?
So the instinct to survive is human nature itself, and every aspect of our personalities derived from it. Anything that conflicts with the survival instinct acts sooner or later to eliminate the individual and thereby fails to show up in future generations. Oof. A scientifically verifiable theory of morals must be rooted in the individual's instinct to survive and nowhere else. It must be correctly described the hierarchy of survival, note the motivations at each level, and resolve all conflicts. We have such a theory now, and we can solve any moral problem on any level. Self-interest, love of family, duty to country, responsibility towards the human race. The basis of all morality is duty, a concept with the same relation to group that self-interest has to the individual. Man has no, or man has no moral instinct. He is not born with moral sense. You were not born with it. I was not. And a puppy has none. We acquire moral sense when we do through training, experience, and hard sweat of the mind. And when you act, you are exercising authority. You're using force. And force is violence, the supreme authority from which all other authorities fundamentally derive. Starship Troopers.
So right. It's so accurate.
Oh, that's so funny.
Love it.
Especially considering what Starship Troopers, the society they created.
No, I actually, okay, so I do also, in the hypothetical system that I invented, in order to obtain suffrage. So you're born, everybody is born with the right to obtain suffrage. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how old you are, how stupid you are, how crippled you are, whatever. You are guaranteed the right to earn suffrage, like to earn the ability to vote, the privilege to vote. And in order to do that, though, you have to voluntarily do some, like 2 years of some kind of civil service, not just military, because I mean we don't want to create like some super militarist state, but that could also be anything.
What Switzerland does.
Fire department. No, but they force them to join the military. You have to join the military. I'm saying I'm saying that in order to get the right to vote, you can voluntarily, like the way to vote, if you want to vote, you have to voluntarily serve like 2 years.
Yeah.
Because the thing is,
well, then you won't be able to do that if you're
as long as it's not just the military, because
no, it's not. It would also, like, for instance,
going through a complete like sexual assault.
No, yeah, that's what I was starting to say. Like, it should not just be the military. I also think that sets a bad precedent and could move us in a more militaristic direction. But I think it should also be, you should open it to, like, for instance, fire department or like some kind of like paramedic or park ranger, Peace Corps. Just give a lot of different routes to do that, because I think that people don't take voting or democracy seriously. And I think the reason that people do not take voting or democracy seriously is because we take it for granted. And the reason we take it for granted is because we are born with the right to vote. We're born with that entitlement. And it just doesn't it just seems kind of messed up to me personally that some hypothetical, and I know this is a very, very like contrived stereotype, but some fat 30-year-old slob who still lives in his parents' basement, has no job, is willfully unemployed. I'll clarify that. Sits on the couch all day eating potatoes, watching reruns of the Kardashians. So, like, I don't think that. Okay, so compare him to somebody who did like 3 tours of Afghanistan / Iraq / whatever fucking wars were.
He'd have been better because at least he didn't participate in imperialism.
But I was saying, but what I was saying is, I think that the veteran, morally speaking, like, okay, yeah, I disagree with the war in Iraq, but this is just a hypothetical right here. I'm just saying that somebody who's a war veteran who laid his life down for his country, who
then he would be
put his
dead.
life on the line. No, I said he was willing to sacrifice himself for his country.
Okay. I get
willing to. Okay, yeah. I think that morally speaking, since he did something he gave back to society, to his community, did his civic virtue or
duty.
Civic duty.
Yeah.
civic virtue.
Did I say civic virtue?
You did.
Yeah.
Okay, I meant civic duty. Because he did his civic duty, he has more of a moral right to have a say in decisions that affects other people than the person who has not done anything with his life to improve society. And
Are you a veteran?
And then also, for example, I think it should be the same with like firefighter or a medic, or just this is just a hypothetical, like I said, but I think people take more seriously what they earn as opposed to what they were given.
So you don't hold open democracy is clear, nearly as a high standard that a lot of people on the left tend to do.
No, because
it's voting at all
is,
costs because the most important thing is for your voice to be heard. Because under the system you're describing, obviously it would result in fewer people voting, regardless. But it doesn't seem to.
No, but the thing is, what it will do is it will protect democracy from eroding, though. Because the thing is, the more and more you expand democracy, the closer and closer you come to authoritarianism.
So you're just trying to keep the acceleration from happening.
I see
the issue as
there is such thing as democratic authoritarianism. It's called Caesarism. It is when there is one man, one supreme leader, so to speak, who rises up, and he is not legitimized by the divine right of kings. He is seen as an extension of the plebiscite's will.
So what you're saying is you want a secular theocracy.
What?
So what you're saying is you want a secular theocracy.
No, I'm saying I don't want that.
He's saying that he's opposed to Caesarism, and his idea would be how you disrupt it.
Yeah, exactly. What you do is, in order to preserve democracy, in order for democracy to work, you need to keep it in chains.
A lot of people seem to find the principle of open-ended democracy as easy as possible to be the underlying principle from everything else that all other political life stems from.
I think it's
any restriction on it would be violating the principle of democracy itself.
Yeah, I think it's really I find it. Frankly, okay, so I am for democratic institutions. I support democratic institutions. I've never missed an election day in my life. I volunteer at the polls every election day for 15 hours straight. However, regardless, I still find it incredibly creepy that there are people out there who treat democracy as if it is like the highest good there is.
Yeah.
Like it scares me. Like, for instance, there's this one lady who I've been having this back. I've had like a Twitter feud, or not a Twitter feud. We've had this back and forth for like about 2 years. And the thing is, she's not a bot. Because she's not a bot. But the thing is,
she's not a
she
bot.
acts like a bot. In that nothing that you say registers.
That's a 2019 meme.
Nothing that you say registers with her. Like, for instance, but the thing is, all of her quotes are like, "We must protect democracy from like the Koch brothers and all that stuff." And she thinks like the Koch brothers and Trump are like best friends when they actually hate each other. And I've kept trying to tell her.
One of them hates Trump. I think the other one doesn't.
I've kept saying, you do not understand the optics. And I've tried explaining to her that the Koch brothers were pretty much funding, like everyone you saw on the stage back in 2015, 2016, except for like two of them, were funded to some degree by the Koch brothers. Except for Donald Trump. They were not expecting Donald Trump to just come bulldoze his way in and cuck them out of the GOP.
Yes.
Like he took over the GOP. He completely kicked them to the. It was hilarious. Like
they're opportunists because they invest. They're going to vote for Trump when it's obvious. They're going to.
No. They're actually investing. Okay, they're funding a lot of moderate Democrats now.
Well, they did the same thing in 2016.
I think these
they fund all sides.
The political elite, they see, okay, we can get what we want through moderate republicanism now that we can no longer get it through the Republican Party, which is unfortunate, and I think a sign of the absolute wrong direction that the Democratic Party is headed, and it may lead to their defeat in November.
I'm voting Democrat 100%. I'm running in Jimmy Carter.
Oh,
hey, you know what they say? Hey, vote blue no matter who, right?
Every time.
Well, I'm voting blue, and you said no matter who. So.
You need to get a portrait of Jimmy Carter. You need to hang it on your wall.
That's actually kind of funny. You see, and the thing is, I didn't even really start liking Jimmy Carter until I decided I was going to vote for him, because it was like, oh, he's still eligible. But then I'm like, you know what? I've always thought Jimmy Carter was like a nice guy. Definitely a better humanitarian than he was president. But I think he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think Jimmy Carter would be a better president now than he would have been in the political context of.
Wait. For me, it's conditional. Will the poll be national security again? Brzezinski. Well, Brzezinski will be his NatSec advisor.
Foreign policy has come around. The discussion Amir is interested in.
Yeah, you know that there's something fucked up with U.S. foreign policy when the most dovish Secretary of State in the past 75 years is Henry fucking Kissinger.
Don't say it. Oh, you said it. You said it.
Wow, and he's right. Kissinger was actually dovish.
There's a reason. Like the neocons fucking hate him. Like I don't understand why like the far left, like the Kyle Kalinske crowd, lumps him in. No, this was the stupidest thing ever. It was Bernie Sanders. Okay, so Mike Pompeo and Henry Kissinger like met for some kind of meeting on something. Bernie Sanders sent out a tweet criticizing Mike Pompeo for meeting with Henry Kissinger. It's like, no, you got your priorities mixed up. You should be criticizing Henry Kissinger for meeting Mike Pompeo.
I mean, honestly, American foreign policy, you're not going to find a good guy.
No, which is why, like,
the best one is the one that doesn't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah, the best one is the one. The best one is
like, they don't exist.
Like, I don't understand why people are so obsessed with Kissinger being a war criminal when there are. I mean, like, yeah, technically, yeah, he is. He kind of is. But the thing is, there are so many bigger war criminals than him, like Donald Rumsfeld,
George W. Bush,
George W. Bush,
Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld,
Hillary Clinton.
Oh yeah,
Hillary Clinton. Yep, Hillary Clinton. John Kerry.
No,
John Kerry was a little better, but not by much.
It's like Diet Pepsi.
Lapis gives me shit because I mention Kissinger all the time to her for some reason.
It's a pragmatic obsession.
That's me. You see, I like his. Maybe I just like him because he's a Actually, no. I'm a political realist personally, so I guess like his ideas speak to me more than someone like say Marx. Or I'm trying to think. Or no. So I mean, I'm anti. Like I'm a non-interventionist. That's my default point. That's like my default position.
Would you consider yourself an isolationist too, or no?
No, definitely not. I'm not an isolationist. I'm against isolationism. I mean, I'm against like extreme globalism too, but I'm very against isolationism.
Well, how do you define globalism?
Okay, not in the way. Okay, that I'm just using that term colloquially. I don't mean it in the same way that
Alex Jones.
No. But I just mean in terms of
mega corporations, right?
Exactly. Like, I mean, I'm for globalization, 100%, but I still believe in like a Westphalian nation-state system.
Oh, wait. So I found my clone. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I am for.
Oh, and by the way, it's 1 a.m. now.
Okay, then let's finish. Let's try to wrap. So let's try to wrap up within the next 20-ish minutes or so. There's just a couple more points to touch on.
Okay.
That actually. Okay, so we were just talking about this. We're coming to the next part. So do you think that democracy? Or hold on. How did I need to see how I worded this. To go back to, I don't want to word this question incorrectly.
Oh, all your questions have been vague and nebulous.
Have they?
Yes.
Okay. Here's
no,
one.
I haven't. Shut up, Bull.
Is democracy an essential component of liberalism?
Yes.
Really?
No, not economic liberalism.
No, I just mean like liberalism in general, the liberal tradition. Like we're not.
No,
or at least let's say your own individual interpretation, because everyone these days has their own definition.
Ask the question again.
Okay. I would say that.
Do you think that liberalism, that democracy is a fundamental component of it, or do you think that it is the icing on the cake?
I think that because democracy isn't a fundamental component of liberalism, and that is one of liberalism's weaknesses.
Interesting. You see, the way I see it is because democracy is not a precondition for a free and is not a fundamental precondition for a free and prosperous society. The two preconditions that you need for a prosperous free society are 1, the rule of law, number 2, property rights. However, democracy makes it better. So it's kind of like okay, like what would you rather eat? Would you rather eat like frosting without the cake, or if you had a choice between licking frosting or eating an unfrosted cake, what would you choose?
Too much frosting makes me sick.
Exactly. Like, like frosting isn't good unless it's on something. Unless you're like maybe 3 years old and are like scrounging around for stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I mean. So like, I think it's a deal. Democracy is like a DLC.
Liberalism itself, the way I define it through individualism, democracy is just, it's inherently a slow acting poison that you just end up in those cycles of death and rebirth over and over.
And so we also
will eventually erode liberalism regardless, I think.
And then there's
I think Dakota is right, but that is a good thing.
Yeah.
Democracy has an amazing radical potential, which is why I like it.
I mean, I think democracy is okay. Well, so you call me a bit of a doomer. So I mean, I'm pro. So I do not believe, or I do not want a democracy. I want a government that has democratic institutions where the leadership is legitimized by the democratic institutions. That's what keeps them in check.
Lapis, do you disagree with my definition of liberalism?
Can you repeat that?
Liberalism.
The holding the individual as supreme over the group.
Oh, I mean,
that's essential.
In the philosophical, yeah. I mean,
that
I definitely say that
I wanted to hear what she was saying.
Oh,
let me hear her response.
I'd say that is a not inherent. I mean, it certainly is a core liberal tenet. I usually think of liberalism more in the realm of economic than political.
Yeah, well, it is fundamentally an economic ideology, but then again, it also extends into sort of like this wider, more. It's also this macrocosm that encompasses all these other things, but at its core, it is at the core, it is economic. And I think it makes sense.
I would say that is a central tenet.
Because I mean, individual.
But it can exist,
Is individual liberty is downstream from self-ownership, property rights, all that stuff.
Yeah, all the bad stuff.
I don't know.
I'm not so sure. I feel like that the principle of property rights and economic freedom is derived from the sense of importance of the individual. But ultimately, it's basic utopianism at the end of it all.
It's more of like this is like a chicken or the egg situation at this point. If we're gonna get into that, I mean, but I just mean, like, for instance, a society will not be free unless you are free to make your own decisions in terms of like the economy or in terms of like economic freedom eventually leads to social freedom.
So basically,
I mean, we've seen that, especially in the context of the U.S. Like, in terms of social freedoms, 200 years ago,
especially with civil rights.
Yeah, it would be seen as pretty authoritarian in terms of how social.
I don't know. I think we're kind of saying a backsliding on civil.
Oh no, I agree. I mean, maybe not in. Honestly, I think
culturally, yes. Legally, no.
Well, I mean, basically.
Well, I mean, legally, in the massive reduction in the amount of polling stations, that would, to me, indicate a kind of voter suppression in any other.
Okay, so what I don't like is, I honestly think voter suppression is, so I'm not saying it doesn't exist, because I'm sure it does, but the thing is, I think that it's, I don't want to say a boogeyman, but I think it's a bit overblown.
I just need evidence
Republicans do the same exact thing when they talk about voter fraud. It's like voter suppression, voter fraud. It's like, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Both are happening, but not to the degree that the side that says.
All you really need is evidence that these stations are being taken down for reasons other than that they can't afford to keep them up, because that's the excuse they make without providing any actual proof. But then the other side doesn't provide any actual proof that it's for voter suppression. Like, there's no evidence, there's no calls, there's no emails, there's nothing. It's just being put out there.
Is look at cause and effect. If the effect is voter suppression, then I really don't care very much about.
It has to have an intention behind it.
I don't really care about intention. Never have.
That's
It's
the
more
point.
about
Yeah, no, you're like me then. I'm a consequentialist. So I think that like a person's like whether a person is quote unquote good really has more to do with the effects that they have on other people and on society as opposed to what they intend. Like for instance, I think that a well-meaning this is just like a really rudimentary like anecdote, but of the most well-intentioned communist in the world who manages to somehow lead a revolution and creates what he thinks is going to be his communist utopia that is going to save mankind, and he's like so certain about this, and he's like really, really, really sincere about this, but then what he creates ends up leading to like a bunch of people dying and like bread lines and stuff. That person, I think, is worse for society than somebody who is 100% believes in like Nazi bullshit, but does not go out and.
Well, it's because with the Nazi bullshit, they get to pick one small group in society that does okay, and they just kick out and kill the rest.
No, I'm saying, like, for instance, the guy who's himself, it's just like, yeah, you're a disgusting person. It's like you're a disgusting person for believing in this, but you did not accidentally create a dictatorship that led to the death of those. But yeah.
So, would you believe the same for like communists who per se don't actually act on their political beliefs and don't successfully establish a revolution?
What do you mean?
Would you say that they would be better than a fascist who actually succeeded in establishing a fascist regime?
I would say if they both do like
consequentially versus
consequentially, like if both of them if they did not do the same amount of damage, like let's say the person you're describing and the person I'm describing, they did not do any damage at all, I'd say they're on the same footing. They're on the same level.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I mean,
or the result that's more important.
Exactly. It's kind of like, okay, here's probably a better example. Let's say you have this rich asshole celebrity who only cares about his own publicity, but he ends up donating $1 million to like blind orphans or something.
Trump.
Like that is a good thing. That is a good, like, he has definitely done something good to benefit society. I think he might just be doing it to get brownie points with the public, but I mean, he's still done something objectively good. He's helping Trump. He's fucking helping blind orphans.
Oh my goodness, so funny.
But yeah.
Yeah. Man. So
have we agreed? Is democracy and liberalism ideologically they definitely are compatible depending on how you structure the democracy. But is it inherent to liberalism for it to work successfully?
I'd say
so, to be honest, just because if you look at the writings of past little philosophers like John Locke or even Thomas Hobbes, they always it goes back to social contract theory, right? Like they want like the idea of the idea of building institutions based on the principle of representation. You know.
Yeah. So they did not support. So they did not want a democracy. They wanted a republic that was legitimized by democratic institutions. Because there's a difference between democracy, the system, and democracy, the implementation or the practice.
So, just the difference is whether it's inherent or not. I think it's inherent just because they wrote about it and they thought about it. It just also, once in practice, it kind of comes together.
Yeah, I really think we just need to examine.
Oh, that was me.
Considering that both of us are consequentialists, me and the political that it would be more useful to examine liberalism in regards to, its effects and how it is implemented rather than necessarily theory. Although I can understand the temptation to do so.
Okay, so we got a Polly Unknown asking us, have you read Dialectic of Enlightenment? I have not. However, I don't know if this is the same thing exactly, but I was about to bring up a I don't want to say it was a point, but I was going to mention that some people have described liberalism before as a compromise between sort of the law and order, like a law and order society, and like an extreme libertarian society. Like liberalism is the compromise between them. It's them reconciling and creating something that's like a little bit about like. Have you seen the movie Demolition Man? Have you guys seen Demolition Man?
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah. So remember there's the cop there's like the cop friend who like ends up taking over the police force, and then there's like crazy anarchist dude who's like he lives in like the slums or whatever. And they can't get along, but then at the end they get along and decide to make a society that sort of
they want to live in a society.
Exactly. If you want to live in a society, you need to make those compromises. I think liberalism can best be described in a way as a compromise between law and order or between security and freedom.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, one of the fundamental cornerstones of liberalism is like, I know people are saying like you have like Donald Trump and he's always talking about, oh yeah, law and order, law and order, law and order.
Exclamation point.
And he's making it sound, oh yeah, by the way, every time he tweets that, I retweet him and in caps I say special victims unit. Yeah, but yeah, so the thing is, so he means it in a completely different way, but his words are not necessarily wrong. Like, in order to have a free society, you do need law and order. Like, that's why I make a distinction between. So I do not support the police as they currently like. I do not like the cops all that much. I mean, I might like individual cops, but I just generally.
Have you ever met an American who didn't like the police in the first place?
But I do. So I don't support the police, but I support law enforcement. I believe in law enforcement. I believe that in order to have a free society, you also need to have an orderly society. And that goes back to what I was saying. I was quoting Starship Troopers earlier. The concept that violence is the supreme authority from which all other authority fundamentally derives. That is a liberal principle.
It
right
really
there.
is.
That is like one of the core maxims. I mean, it sounds very like dark and cynical, but
because it is.
Yeah, but it's still it's an observation, and that is why in a liberal society, the state this is definitely it definitely proves to be a problem in a lot of cases. But that is the reason why the government is given the monopoly on violence. Because Weber, that is what he defined the state as. Any institution in a society that holds the monopoly on violence. And
it's definitely sort of complex, like when you examine it on the.
It really is, because I don't like the precedent of the government holding a monopoly on violence, because basically there's.
But the thing is,
the final arbiter in decision making, like in solving like problem or whatever. Like that is the military is going to be the last solution that they send. Like because and it is like the fear of that which prevents people from doing shenanigans. I won't even elaborate, but
the shenanigans are being done at the moment, and I think more shenanigans will continue to be done.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, I definitely agree that the system we have right now is incredibly fucked up.
Boogaloo.
And I was actually on a podcast with Cotton. Do you guys know Cotton?
Who?
No, I don't know Tom Cotton.
No, ew. Tom. No, Tom. Okay, the one thing I did like about the one thing I liked that Tom Cotton said was when he came out and was talking about how COVID may have been treated or created in a Wuhan lab. because I've been saying that for months already.
May have.
Well, I mean, it was also, I believe there was a Norwegian report done on this, and it was also speculated that could have been done in America.
Yeah, okay, that one I would not believe. I thought that the Chinese maybe did. My initial reaction was COVID was engineered for population control against Hong Kong, which is definitely something the Chinese government would do. Really? You don't think that? I mean, it's definitely something they
they want to control Hong Kong, but they wouldn't use a disease.
It would kill the old people. No, it would kill specifically the old people. I don't believe this anymore, but it was just or I never even believed it anyway. It was just a speculation I had.
Oh, I see. It was like the
it was a fun.
What was it? Jet fuel can't melt steel beams.
Yeah.
Can it?
Yeah, it can.
You're mentioning 9/11. Oh, yeah. Okay, I get what you mean now.
Can it?
Have you been watching too much? Oh, what was that one documentary?
It can and it can't. Jet fuel can't melt steel beams. Like if you just put steel beams in the jet fuel, but the impact of the jet fuel as it catches on fire reaches temperature that can melt steel beams, crystallizes them. In fact, so quickly it has no time to melt.
It's such a silly argument, but you know
it is. I mean, I don't.
Politically motivated.
It's like turning the frogs gay.
Chemicals in water turn all the freaking frogs gay.
Yeah, to turn them gay, it literally changes their sex.
Oh my god.
So that brings me. Hold on a second. Oh yeah, so we were talking about that is an interesting way to define liberalism, though, as sort of the rational compromise between security and absolute freedom.
So
because then that comes down to like the harm principle, what Mill talked about. Hold on, I'm pulling up the quote.
So basically, order, liberty.
Fatherland, justice.
Well, not like that. Like, basically, when I'm saying law and order, I'm not meaning it in an authoritarian way. I just mean it in like a.
I'm messing with you.
Yeah. Okay, so the principle is that the sole end for which mankind are warranted, individually or collectively, in interfering with the liberty of action of any of their number is self-protection. The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized society against his will is to prevent harm to others. That is when the law should get involved. When you are abridging somebody else's right to go about their business without being punched in the face or without being shot in the groin or whatever.
Yeah.
So
personally, I believe that unjust laws deserve to be broken.
Yeah.
I do too. Like, for instance, I was on a podcast a couple months ago, and we were talking about and I said that if a police officer breaks in your house without a warrant and a police officer is doing something that oversteps the bounds of his legally enshrined prerogatives,
you shoot him on sight.
He is no longer a police. He is no longer a legitimate cop, and at that point, he is nothing more than a home invader or some kind of a mugger wearing a policeman's uniform, and you have every right to defend yourself.
If he got into my house with a warrant, I'd still want to shoot him on sight.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, morally speaking, what you said would be a little more objectionable. But what I'm saying is, if you broke into my house and
a little more is doing a lot of work in that context.
It was abuse, but like if he was abusing his power, I would be in the moral rights to.
If he
terminate him with maximum prejudice.
He could legally obtain a warrant under a false pretense.
To put him night.
So
trying to find I don't like to. I'm not a violent person. I'm trying to make it sound like the least.
Just say it.
But you can't be an American and not a violent person.
Yeah.
In my personal experience, they're all violent.
Wait. Do you think I'm violent?
You're the least violent American I've met so far, but that's a lie.
Okay, so we just had a comment from Polly Unknown.
He's right. We should dispense.
Is that Bismarck?
Yes. Let's dispense with libertarianism.
I think I know who it is. I think I know who this is.
Yeah,
I
do not
could
believe
be
that
wrong. I
people
could
should
be
do
wrong,
whatever
but
they want.
there was. But I think I know who this is. I think this is actually an acquaintance of mine or a friend from college.
I
But
mean,
maybe it's not.
we probably disagree with what people should and should not be allowed to do, but definitely there must be some regulations, like the anti-mask movement should.
Oh yeah, that's stupid. Honestly,
Oh, yeah,
it's
very stupid.
It's so dumb.
So, do you think we should end it here since it's been 20 minutes?
Amir is right. We should.
Okay, I just wanted to make 2 more points, if that's okay. Just
Go
2
ahead.
more quick definitions of.
As long as it's not 2 more 20-minute points.
Actually, you know what we could do? You know what we could actually do? We could make this a part 1.
Sure, yeah. Save your points for another time. There seems like there's a lot more talking to that we can do.
Yeah. So, when would you guys say you'd be free to potentially do it again? You guys good tomorrow, maybe?
Amir and I are busy tomorrow.
Okay. What about you?
Me? Oh, I don't know. Like Wednesday nights.
What about Thursday?
Wednesday nights, Thursday nights work.
That actually probably would work. I don't think I'm working. Yeah, I'm not working Friday.
I can do Thursday or Friday.
Okay, let's plan for Thursday.
Wednesday, Tuesday are busy.
Okay. All right. So I guess that wraps episode 2 of the Political Pigpen up. That's what I decided to call the stream from now on. So yeah. So I don't know how many of you guys who are watching right now were watching when we started streaming 3 hours and 25 minutes ago. But for the first hour 15 minutes, it was a bit of a shit show. We had 7 people in here, 6 people, I don't know, everyone talking over each other, not structured at all. And I was like just about ready to end the stream and just like do a do-over in a couple days. But I think after everyone left, it got a lot better, more coherent, and we got a lot more done discussion-wise. So yeah, you weren't there for that, but Dakota and Voltaire were.
What else was there?
What do you mean?
What other people were there?
Oh, let's see. We had Closington. I don't know if you know Closington.
Don't know.
I did.
Yeah, and then we had Alcazai. And then we had PhD Toasty Toast.
What a good name.
Yeah. All right.
All right. I like to say subscribe to his OnlyFans. That'll be coming out soon.
No, good.
Oh yeah, and so but a lot of the trouble we had earlier at the beginning of the stream is because we were getting ratioed by a bunch of trolls. I think somebody I know who I sent
You shouldn't have done
link
it.
to the I sent somebody I know a link to the stream, and I think this person sent it to all their friends, and
You and I both know who it was and why you shouldn't have done it.
Why don't you just name names?
because
Because if he's wrong, then he can't backpedal.
exactly. No, but yeah.
To me, this
So,
sounds like a lot of words to justify not wanting to accuse.
well, there's a
He's
reason.
watching the stream anyway. He won't know.
Well, anyway, so well, pretty much at this point we're just bantering.
Yep.
So we will continue this conversation, talking about defining what liberalism is, talking about the economic aspects, the philosophical, moral aspects, practical aspects, and the all other aspects of the aspects or whatever. But
Truly an inspiring dialogue.
aspects, it's like meta. Super meta. How many aspects?
It was so smart what you just said. I'm still in awe.
What
But
was
yeah.
that?
It was Dakota's kazoo.
Yeah, that's my favorite tool in the whole world.
Is it your favorite tool?
I
Is
thought
it
your
like
hand
more?
was your favorite
Not a tool like more Dakota.
Screwdrivers, wrenches,
Dirty
So on and so forth.
so forth.
So yeah, so we will
So
continue this on Thursday. If any of you viewers stuck with us from the very beginning, because I feel like maybe one of you did. Thank you.
Probably not.
Probably not. Probably not, because yeah. But if you got anything out of this, or even if you didn't and you just want to be nice, like, subscribe, click the bell thing. I don't know what that's gonna do, but
It means
yeah.
you'll see all of your videos and not just nothing.
Exactly.
It's actually really vital for them to click the bell thing. If they don't,
Oh, is it really? Okay. Well, anyway,
they will not see your videos.
So anyway, anybody? Let's do some closing remarks. Let's start with you, Voltaire.
I'm just a guy who joined the stream randomly, and I hope everyone has a good night.
Dakota?
Freedom, liberty, but have fun. Yeah.
And Lapis? Lapis?
Lapis.
Lapis.
Like, the gemstone, lapis
Lazuli. Lazuli?
lazuli. I suppose lazuli might be another pronunciation, but I've only ever heard lazuli. Anyway, thank you very much for having me on the stream. It was a pleasure to get to talk to everyone. Liberalism is a platform. The way it destroys the old world and weakens all of the old structures that enabled it to stand strong is how leftism can win. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, it's how enlightened centrism can win, guys. That too. No, it's how whatever the system that I invented can. It's how politocracy.
Your fan fiction.
No. Politocracy. It comes from political.
It's his OC. Do not steal, Dakota.
Politocracy will win. I will end by saying that history never ends, and that she simply keeps finding ways of retelling her story. Good night, everybody.